Long Chun had just gotten near the white lake when a black light shot out at him. Long Chun snorted and caught the black light with one hand. The black light was actually an iron tentacle. "Get out here!" Long Chun pulled with both arms, and a huge object came out of the lake. Long Chun was dumbfounded to see that it was actually a 3,000-meter flying boat. How could there be a flying boat here? Long Chun was stunned. Was there someone like him who could bring things from the outside world into the netherworld? Just as Long Chen's guard was raised, he saw a woman on the flying boat. She seemed to be 17 or 18 and looked just as human as he did. She had a normal person's legs, black waist-length hair, bright eyes, white teeth, and a nice face. The woman pointed at Long Chun and began to cry out. Long Chun just stared blankly as he had no idea what she was trying to say. However, based on her appearance, she should be expressing anger. "Can you speak the same language as me? I can't understand you," shouted Long Chun. The woman fell silent. She suddenly ran back inside the flying boat and began to randomly pat around something inside the control cabin. "Is she angry? She's going to use the boat to attack me?" Long Chun was befuddled. Was her temper even worse than his? "Can you speak the same language as me? I can't understand you." Just as Long Chun was puzzled, a voice came from the flying boat. That voice was identical to his. She had actually recorded what he had just said. The woman began to press even more buttons. She suddenly said, "Wait a moment." Long Chun jumped. She was actually speaking the same language as him. However, the way she spoke was still very strange and tough to understand. At this time, the woman began to be covered in runes. After a moment, those runes vanished. The woman once more jumped out. Long Chun was about to smile and greet her when she pointed at him and shouted, "You evil person! How dare you barge into my territory? Do you believe me when I say I can turn you to dust with a single thought?" Just now she hadn't known how to speak his language, and now she learned it instantly. Her words were now very clear and articulate. If it weren't for what had happened just before, Long Chun would believe that she came from the Martial Heaven continent as well. "I don't believe you. Your bragging is a bit too much." Long Chun shook his head because he didn't sense any danger from her. More importantly, he didn't sense any hostility. "You! How brazen! Do you know who I am?" demanded the woman. "I really don't." "Then let me tell you, I am the Nether God's direct subordinate, one of the 9 great guards of the 9 springs, and this region is my domain. You've barged into my domain, so tell me, how do you want to die?" shouted the woman, looking down on him. "You sound quite amazing based on your title," said Long Chun. "But of course, I am the one in control of this place. Killing you doesn't take any effort from me." "Ah, since you don't understand the Netherworld's rules, just answer a few questions from me, and I won't kill you." Long Chun frowned. Long Chun was also a conman, and he had great talent when it came to this regard. After many years of conning others, he felt like she was now trying to con him. However, he didn't expose her. Instead, he nodded. "All right, I can answer your questions." The woman snorted, "Humph. What's with that way of speaking? Aren't you afraid I'll kill you? I've lived for 3,000 years, and I've killed countless people. I crawled out of a mountain of corpses and sea of blood." The woman was clearly very dissatisfied with Long Chen's tone. That was because from start to now, he had yet to reveal the slightest fear. That made her uneasy. "Amazing. Go ahead and ask then. Speaking of which, how old are you again?" asked Long Chen. "Me? I'm 18. Hey, I'm the one asking questions here," raged the woman. Long Chun, this crafty old fox, had launched a sudden sneak attack that instantly exposed her real age. As for being 3,000 years old, that was pure nonsense. "Don't get mad. I was just asking randomly. I'm a very well-behaved, bashful person, to be honest. I've never killed anyone, but I'm not afraid of death. People told me that once a person dies, they'll ascend into the immortal realm and live a carefree life. If you want to kill me, then kill me," said Long Chun indifferently. "Who told you that?" They were lying. When a person dies, things become much worse for them. That's why people have to live properly while they're alive, said the woman. Ah, so they were all lying? How evil. When I get back, I'll definitely make them pay for that. Miss, you really are the best. You're so beautiful and kind. Speaking of which, I still don't know your name, said Long Chun. I'm you bastard, who's asking the questions here, me or you? Raged the woman just as she was about to state her name. If you have questions, then just ask. You weren't saying anything, so if I also didn't say anything, it would be awkward. Long Chin shrugged innocently. The woman's chest was constantly heaving from rage. Speaking of which, although she was rather lithe and had a pure face, the scale of her chest wasn't small. Could just barely be counted as causing surging waves. I'm asking the questions right now. What's your name? She demanded. Long Chen. Long Chen's reply was short and direct. His name had yet to reach the point of being able to shake hell just yet. Where are you from? I suppose the East? What is the East supposed to mean? It seems you come from some tiny place. Which world are you from? Yesterday. You don't even know this? Then which starfield are you from? What's a starfield? Long Chun looked at the woman in shock. Now he wasn't acting. Just where was this woman from? Fine, I get it. You're just a rookie and know nothing. You can leave then. I have to keep gathering I have to go into seclusion. I'll spare you this time. The woman waved her hand in a shooing motion. All right, then I'll go first while you busy yourself. This water's so hard to gather. How much have you gotten? Asked Long Chin. Just a bit. The woman had gone a bit absent-minded after shooing off Long Chun. It was unknown what she was thinking, but she randomly answered Long Chen's random question. However, her expression quickly changed, and she glared at him, only to see a naughty smile. Bastard! You are provoking the grand dash. All right, little Connor. Don't think you can fool the old Connor. Your Tao is still shallow. When it comes to duping people, it takes hard work and experience. Someone like you with no foundation, no technique, and no plan is just embarrassing the art of conning, said Long Chun. I'm not a conner. You're the conner, raged the woman. Well, whatever. You're here for the white water, and I'm here to gather it too. Why do you have to force me away? Do you think you can gather this whole lake by yourself? Don't be so stingy, said Long Chin. TCH, I'm the one who got here first. You charged into my territory. How can you be so unreasonable? Raged the woman, puffing out her chest righteously. I'm unreasonable? Fine, you're right, this place is yours. Go ahead and slowly gather as much as you can. I'll switch to another place, said Long Chen. It wasn't as if he wanted to be enemies with her. Although this woman had tried to con him, she had never had an urge to kill him. He wasn't so narrow-hearted as to fight against her over this. Long Chun refused to believe that she could gather all the water of this giant lake. Humph, your boat isn't even as large as mine. Even if you packed it full with water, how are you going to bring it away? Demanded the woman disdainfully. Long Chun almost laughed. Why did it feel like she was looking down on him just because his boat was smaller? Long Chun looked down at his small, shabby boat and then at her large flying boat. He supposed it did look a bit shameful. Ignoring her, he went around this region and entered the White Lake from a greater distance. When he entered the White region, his boat directly sank into the water along with him. He had forgotten that life and death were opposing attributes. There was no way his small boat made of the soil of death could float on this water of life. Seeing him fall into the water, the woman laughed at him. Fortunately, this water was filled with life energy and didn't harm him. What vast life energy! However, I can't absorb it. Long Chen's expression changed. Hey, do you not know how to swim? If you beg me, I won't let you drown, said the woman. Long Chen ignored her. He was sensing the rhythm of life within this white water. Its rhythm was completely different from a human's, and there was no way to use it to heal injuries. This water was useless to him. After all his trials to get here, he found that this water was useless to him. He almost shed a tear. Hey, isn't it just water? Don't cry. I can give you a bottle. You can bring it back and raise some grass and flowers, laughed the woman. She slowly sent her flying boat over to him. A chain came out of it for Long Chun to climb on. Raising grass and flowers? Could it be? Long Chun suddenly laughed. Thanks for the reminder. A large vortex appeared behind him, and the water of the white lake was sucked in rapidly. A pillar of white water was pouring into Long Chen's primal chaos space. It rained down on the world trees. During this time, the world trees had grown to 12,000 meters. However, the larger they were, the slower they grew. After reaching 12,000 meters, if he didn't focus on circulating the primal chaos bead, he wouldn't be able to sense them growing at all. At this size, the world trees were able to provide him with a huge amount of life energy. The entire primal chaos space was filled with them. The world trees were able to give him enough life energy that he wasn't afraid of being injured at all. However, this was far from their limit. Their limit was several times this height. The larger the world trees grew, the more life energy they contained. However, that also meant it would take more energy for them to grow. Long Chun estimated that if he spent day and night circulating the primal chaos bead, he would be able to nourish the world trees to their limit in around 10 years. If he didn't intentionally circulate the primal chaos bead, then it would take 1,000 years. However, Long Chun didn't have even a year to focus on doing this. He couldn't even squeeze out a month. He had no time to focus on nourishing the world trees. However, the white water was able to nourish them, allowing them to rapidly grow. In just a few breaths' time, they reached 15,000 meters. Long Chun was delighted. There was no way for him to directly absorb this white water, but seeing that the world trees could absorb it, it meant that this white water was a priceless treasure to him. As Long Chun crazily absorbed the white water, the woman's eyes grew larger, and she covered her mouth. This white water here could not be directly absorbed. She had managed to obtain a special flying boat that could enter the water and collect it. However, its gathering speed was measured in drops. She had already been here for a while and only managed to gather a dozen bottles of it. In truth, offering Long Chun a bottle just now had been extremely generous of her. "Hey, if you're so amazing, can you get me some too?" asked the woman. "No problem." Long Chun smiled. In any case, this water didn't belong to him, and this woman wasn't bad. Although she had mocked him before, her offer to give him a bottle of it was a rare show of kindness in the cultivation world. Suddenly, the world rumbled. A sensation of danger filled Long Chen's heart. The woman's expression also changed. She looked around, terrified. The 9 lakes were all trembling as a terrifying pressure descended. Long Chun hastily stopped absorbing the water. Once he stopped, the pressure slowly faded. "I've reached the limit? It won't let me take any more?" wondered Long Chun. He looked at the world trees inside the primal chaos space. They had grown to 24,000 meters. "How could this be? It doesn't let others take too much?" asked the woman. "I don't know either. When I was taking the black water, I ran into the same thing," said Long Chun. "You even took the death spirit water?" exclaimed the woman. Only now did Long Chun learn that the black water was called death spirit water. "Didn't you want this black water? Take out a storage device and I'll give you some," said Long Chun. The white water had rained down on the primal chaos space. It was quickly absorbed by the soil. Now the only bits remaining were some droplets on the leaves of the world trees. Here. The woman hastily gave Long Chun a translucent bottle. Looking at this bottle, Long Chun was dumbfounded. It was only the size of a fist. It was so small that he looked at her curiously. "This bottle is made of special material. Other storage devices wouldn't be able to bring this life spirit water out of the netherworld," she said helplessly. "All right then." Long Chun took the bottles she gave him into the primal chaos space. Just the droplets on a single leaf were enough to fill them completely. He handed over 100 bottles back to the woman. She immediately smiled brightly. "Thank you. Although you look very fierce and not like a good person, your heart's not bad," thanked the woman as she gently caressed the bottles. "If you removed the first half, I'd feel more moved," said Long Chun speechlessly. "Hee. Who asked you to look so fierce? You look like such a bad person. Come have a seat on my flying boat. The woman brought Long Chun onto the flying boat. Its interior was not bad. But what made Long Chun curious was that while its exterior was similar to the flying boats of the Martial Heaven continent, its interior was completely different. The shape and designs of the interior were things he had never seen before. The control panel in particular was covered in various characters that he didn't recognize at all. He sat down on a soft chair. There was a tea set in front of him, and the woman sat on the other side of the table, facing him. She was still holding the small bottles with a satisfied smile. Hee hee. This time I have really profited. I spent all my savings to rent this flying boat, but this life spirit water is enough to get a huge return on that investment. It'll be enough for my tuition, laughed the woman. Your tuition? Asked Long Chun. Just don't ask about that. I'm not from the same plane as you, and you wouldn't understand my explanation either way. Fortunately, this flying boat had some special functions, allowing me to communicate with you. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be able to understand what the other was saying. Speaking of which, what kind of ancient place do you come from? Based on what the flying boat says, your language is extremely old. Theoretically, no one in existence should still be using such a language, said the woman curiously. It's hard for me to answer that question. I don't even know how to describe where I live. Even if I said the name, you wouldn't recognize it. I don't even know what a starfield is, said Long Chun. Long Chun was sure that he was a frog at the bottom of a well now. The world was far larger than he had imagined. The Martial Heaven continent was just a speck of dust within the cosmos. That's too bad. Once we leave, we'll probably never see each other again. Originally, I was hoping to repay you for this favor once I finished my studies, said the woman sadly. It's fine. I'm not in the habit of forcing people to repay me favors. How fast can this flying boat of yours cross the lakes? Asked Long Chun. Pretty fast. A single lake should only take a dozen breaths, said the woman. A dozen breaths? Long Chun was shocked. It seemed this flying boat really was something good. Do you want to get more life spirit water? Asked Long Chun. Of course I want to, but it can only be taken out with these special bottles. My bottles are already full. As long as you want it, we can cooperate. My guess is that the life spirit water and death spirit water must be balanced to maintain an equilibrium between life and death. Just taking one breaks the equilibrium and touches the rules here. However, if we take both continuously, we should be able to get more. If you're willing to test it, you bring your flying boat and I bring my abilities, and I guarantee your profits will increase by at least 10,000 times. 10,000 times? Are you sure you're not conning me? Asked the woman suspiciously. I do con people often, but I wouldn't con a child like you. Don't worry about it. All right, I'll trust you. In any case, this doesn't have any drawbacks for me, said the woman, sending the boat back toward the Black Lake. What startled Long Chun was that the flying boat's speed seemed very slow, but it seemed to break through space. They reached the Red Lake in just a moment. Furthermore, even when going through the Blue Lake, the terrifying ice chi was completely blocked by the flying boat. Long Chun sighed inside. The world was truly large. Just this flying boat was incomprehensible to him. If he could let Goran take a look at this flying boat, he would go crazy. For Long Chun, though, he was more interested in this woman. Her cultivation base revealed fluctuations similar to a Yuan spirit, but also a bit different. However, the two of them weren't friends, so it wasn't convenient for him to ask her what her origin was. They quickly arrived at the edge of the Black Lake. My flying boat can easily go through the other regions, but the only exception is this Black Lake. My flying boat can't be touched by this death spirit water, said the woman. Long Chun nodded. He took out his black little boat and began to collect the black water again. He also didn't extract too much at once. Instead, he collected it slowly as a test. As expected, his guess was correct. After gathering the life spirit water, he was able to gather more of the death spirit water. With this confidence, he continued gathering more. It wasn't long before the world began to rumble once more. Long Chun immediately stopped. He returned to the white region with the woman's boat and gathered the life spirit water. After 10 trips, Long Chen's world trees had reached their limit. They were a true, towering forest now. As for the black soil, there was now a giant black lake inside it. That was all death spirit water. Long Chen didn't disappoint the woman. He pasted the spatial runes within the primal chaos space onto her special bottles, increasing their interior space. They could now hold tens of thousands of times more life spirit water than before. The woman almost went crazy with joy. After gathering so much life spirit water, she hesitated and then suddenly asked, "I know somewhere that will definitely have treasures. Are you interested? If there are treasures, then I'm definitely interested. However, aren't you afraid of me killing you and taking the treasures all for myself when the time comes?" asked Long Chen. At first, this girl had intentionally acted big toward Long Chen. However, later on, her hostility had faded. Although Long Chen wasn't afraid of her, he couldn't go somewhere unknown without making things clear first. Who wouldn't want a free meal? He didn't want to be devoured by this girl. You wouldn't. You have the spiritual mark of the butterfly spirit race on your hand. That means you're a good person and wouldn't kill me. Furthermore, you shouldn't look down on me. I'm not so easy to kill. The woman pointed to the back of Long Chen's hand. If it weren't for the mark of the butterfly spirit race, then do you think I'd work with you considering your fierce face? So that was the case. However, did he really have such a fierce face? Long Chen touched his face. He had never felt himself to look so fierce. He thought his looks actually weren't bad. Don't think you can cover up your heart so easily. You've killed many people and you can't conceal it. Back in the day, I was also a very handsome dragon, but after killing so many creatures... fuck, whatever, said the evil moon. Killing too much results in your appearance changing? I don't believe you, said Long Chen. I also didn't believe it, but reality proves it. Those who kill too many people start looking fierce. You've killed so many people from the corrupt path. Don't they all look that way? Said Evil Moon. That couldn't be right. The people they killed were all innocent, and so they accumulated resentment. However, when Long Chen killed people, he always kept his conscience clean. It was definitely because he had been under too much pressure these days. Yes, that had to be why his appearance looked so fierce. Little sister. Long Chen put on a smile and did his best to speak warmly. The woman jumped in shock and hastily retreated. Your smile is so sinister. Can you not smile like that? I'm afraid. Ha ha ha. Long Chen's smile stiffened, while Evil Moon's heartless laughter rang out in his mind, making him want to slap it. Seeing Long Chen's expression sink, the woman laughed. I'm just teasing you. Who asked you to con me at the start? Now we're even. So he had actually fallen for the teasing of a girl. Long Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After that joke, she became even friendlier with Long Chen. She introduced herself as Xie Qianqian. She came from a region called the All-Devil Starfield. The All-Devil Starfield? Have you heard of the All-Devil race? Asked Long Chen, surprised. You know about the All-Devil race? Asked Xie Qianqian, just as surprised as Long Chen. Long Chen immediately said that he had encountered one of them in a minor world. He described its appearance. That truly is one of the bastards of the All-Devil race. The majority of the All-Devil Starfield has been taken over by them, which is of course where it gets its name. Those despicable bastards slaughtered countless people. We're their enemies, and my parents, they were killed by them. Tears dripped down her cheek without her knowing it. Long Chen didn't know how to console her. He could only silently listen. Xie Qianqian wiped away her tears and continued. That happened 3 years ago. My parents died in battle. While they were still alive, all the relatives did their best to curry favor with them. But after they died, they immediately showed me their true selves. They were doing their best to win favor with me in order to get my parents' wealth. Humph. I knew what kind of people they were from the start, so I sold off all my parents' assets and left my household. I'm going to become strong and become a grand warrior capable of avenging my parents. That's why I want to study at my Starfield's strongest academy. However, I can't afford their tuition, so I bet everything on renting this special flying boat in hopes of getting a high return when I attack the life and death realm. Oh, that would be your nether passage realm. Long Chen, I really need to thank you. This life spirit water should be enough for my tuition. Even if it's not enough, I should be able to make up the difference through other means. Long Chen nodded. He really had misjudged her. He had thought that this woman had come out to play since she belonged to some powerful family with amazing treasures. Just like he had his own difficulties, she had hers as well. Admirable. Long Chen gave her a thumbs up along with some sincere praise. A confused girl who had come out of nowhere was actually someone who relied only on herself to charge her way forward, betting her life in the netherworld. Such a person was worthy of respect. Long Chen, I've told you my experiences. Can you tell me yours? Otherwise, I'll have lost out, said the woman. For her to still be able to joke with Long Chen showed that her heart was still full of sunshine. Me? Long Chen was startled and shook his head. I don't have any good stories. I have a father, a mother, and a little sister, all living very well. When I was little, I had a carefree life. When I got older, I had to bear more responsibility, so I was busier. A few friends like to mess around with me, so we scuffle all day. Some hills form, some little streams flow. But I have to say, it's very lively. Long Chen put it very lightly. The mountains of corpses and rivers of blood that flowed from his battles had been turned into tiny scuffles. Xie Qianqian didn't manage to hear that aspect of his words and thought that he really did live happily, making her a bit envious. Qianqian, what is the butterfly spirit race? Asked Long Chen. The butterfly spirit race is a kind race but also a very powerful one. They have immense power, and their illusion arts are especially terrifying. Within the same realm, practically no one can resist them. However, they have a fatal weakness, which is fire. That's why they reside in water spirit worlds, as there's no fire element that can threaten them there. However, this information is just things that I've heard. I've never encountered anyone from the butterfly spirit race. However, I know they're pure-hearted. They practically never mark others, and those they do are all good people. That's why I'm willing to work together with you. You might not even realize that when you circulate your energy, a butterfly mark flashes on your hand. With that advice, Long Chen looked down to see an almost imperceptible mark on his hand. It was a butterfly that was slowly flapping its wings. Hopefully, it didn't stay once he returned. There was no way for him to explain this. Where are those treasures you mentioned? Don't worry. No matter how many there are, I'll split them evenly with you, promised Long Chen. I guarantee there are treasures. When I was collecting the life spirit water, I got curious and went deeper to see where the 9 springs gather. There are countless precious stones there with frightening fluctuations. The suction there is also very powerful, so I didn't dare to go. I'm just wondering if you have any method of handling it, said Xie Qianqian. As long as the treasures are good enough, even if there's no way to obtain them, I have to think of some way to do so. Let's go have a look. Long Chen's eyes began to shine. The whirlpool of the 9 lakes flowed down in a waterfall and then flowed back up. That was where the 9 springs gathered. The only possibilities were that there would be no treasures, or whatever treasures there were had to be stunningly precious. Xie Qianqian controlled the flying boat, having it descend in the White Lake. As it descended, countless runes lit up on the flying boat, blocking the white water. Long Chen's world trees had already grown to their limit, so he didn't need to gather more of it. If he continued gathering it, then based on his experience it would transform into the divine life elixir. However, he didn't dare to gather more. The final few times he had collected the life spirit water and death spirit water, he hadn't been able to get much at all before the world had started shuddering. That meant that he had already reached a kind of limit. Taking any more would very likely cause trouble. The two of them were descending deeper and deeper. Long Chen estimated that this place might be even deeper than the martial heaven searing. However, despite the immense pressure, the flying boat was fine. It really is worth spending all your savings on renting. This flying boat is a priceless treasure, sighed Long Chen. Xie Qianqian shook her head. In truth, this flying boat isn't that amazing. It's not a fighting flying boat. However, it is made of special nether iron and isn't rejected in the netherworld, which is what allows it to enter and what makes it so precious. Xie Qianqian was a bit vexed. The flying boat clearly hadn't been as amazing as she had thought when she had rented it. If she hadn't encountered Long Chun, then who knew how long it would have taken her to fill up those bottles of hers. Furthermore, something had happened to her bottles and that had caused the space inside them to shrink. They had lost effect once she had come to the netherworld. Once she returned, she would definitely have to settle the bill with the person who had rented them to her. Long Chun sighed inside. As expected, the outer world was truly mysterious. Such an amazing flying boat was viewed as rubbish by Xie Qianqian. He truly felt like a frog at the bottom of a well. The flying boat was still descending. A general image appeared in Long Chen's head. The 9 springs formed a circular sea, with the whirlpool at the center and the gates of hell at the bottom. However, despite the gates of hell being located not far from the bottom of the 9 springs, they weren't actually the bottom of the 9 springs. That was completely incomprehensible. Everything was white as they descended. However, after a while, intense fluctuations came from below, and the flying boat began to shake. Look, that's the core of the 9 springs. Xie Qianqian carefully controlled the flying boat as she pointed in a certain direction. Long Chun looked at where Xie Qianqian was pointing and saw a 9-colored whirlpool that had a large black hole in its center. When he saw the red, orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, violet, black, and white colors intertwining, he suddenly felt the 9-star hegemon body art form an indescribable resonance with it. It began to circulate on its own, and the 5-star battle armor almost activated. Will the 9-star hegemon body art follow these 9 colors as well? The first 5 stars caused the divine ring to become red, orange, yellow, green, and azure. 9 stars, 9 springs. Is there some kind of connection? But why do I feel like that's not entirely right either? Wondered Long Chun. He felt the 9-star hegemon body art react to the gathering of the 9 springs, but there also seemed to be something different about them. One was a dragon, one was a snake. They looked similar but were completely different species. This feeling was indescribable. To sum up, this feeling was simply very strange. Long Chun, do you have any way to get those crystals on the ground? Seeing that Long Chun was staring blankly, Xie Qianqian thought he was stunned by the sight, so she pulled his attention to the treasures. Only then did Long Chun recover. Now they were even closer to the whirlpool, and the flying boat was constantly shaking. There was a huge twister where the 9 streams gathered. It was roaring like a dragon. If someone were to be sucked into that twister, they would probably be instantly torn to pieces. However, not far from there was a plot of land that had been eroded for countless years. Many crisscrossing and deep ditches were present on it. The deep ditches revealed large crystals at the bottom. Each of them was several meters long, and they came in different colors. The flying boat is unable to get any closer. Otherwise, we might get sucked into the core, said Xie Qianqian. This was the limit. However, even at this distance, the closest white-colored crystal was several miles away. Her flying boat was not a combat flying boat. This projectile range was limited. She could only look at those crystals but not obtain them. Long Chun sank into thought. He waved his hand, and a flying hook appeared with a long chain at the end. This was a corrupt weapon. He didn't even remember its usage. Just now, he had randomly seen it while flipping through the primal chaos space. He threw it out. Its chain was very long and flexible. It quickly reached the first crystal. However, that was when a problem occurred. The suction force was too great, and it caused the hook to be drawn over. There was no way for it to land on the crystal. Xie Qianqian was watching anxiously. If Long Chun could succeed, they would make a terrifying profit. Long Chun snorted and swung his arm. The claw whipped away from the hurricane and wrapped around a portion of the exposed crystal like a python. Long Chun pulled, and the crystal was slowly torn out of the ground. In the end, Long Chun managed to obtain it. When the white crystal landed on the flying boat, Xie Qianqian let out a cheer. This should be a life spirit crystal. There's immense life energy inside. If placed in water, it would create a pool of life spirit water in just a few years. Long Chun nodded. This life energy could be useful to him, but not that useful. He couldn't wait for years. Let's put it away for now and get some more. We'll split them in the end, said Long Chen. All right. Xie Qianqian was incredibly excited. She hadn't expected Long Chen to have this much ability. He was actually able to bring so many things from the outside world into the netherworld. This time, the crystal Long Chen pulled over was a blood-red one. It was a bit demonic and looked like there was blood flowing inside it. However, with the crystalline exterior, it was impossible to sense the fluctuations on the inside. Let me appraise it. Xie Qianqian placed it on a strange device of her flying boat. Dozens of tentacles stuck onto the crystal, and various runes revolved around it. Characters that Long Chen couldn't understand appeared on the control panel. This is a blood soul stone. A normal blood soul stone will be considered top grade if it reaches a soul energy level of 8,000 points. However, this one has reached 3 million soul energy points. Heavens, how shocking! Xie Qianqian was completely stunned by its energy readings. Is it useful? Asked Long Chen. This blood soul stone is one of the products of my all-devil star field. The ancient battlefields between the human race and the all-devil race result in two kinds of crystals. The all-devil race's blood essence and souls are very powerful, and once they're killed, their corpses will gradually condense these kinds of crystals after tens of thousands of years. Those crystals are split into two kinds, blood essence stones and soul stones. Both crystals are priceless treasures that can upgrade the power of a person's physical body or soul. My guess is this blood soul stone is the result of those monsters on the bridges from when you first enter the netherworld. They're gathering all that energy to condense these stones, said Xie Qianqian. Yes, I saw them too. Now that you say that, why is it that we would all advance together here if we aren't on the same planes? Asked Long Chen. This was something he had been very curious about, and now he was reminded of it. I'm not sure. According to ancient records, this world is not a complete world, and the laws are chaotic. According to reason, each region should be operating according to its own functions. However, I saw all kinds of life forms I've never seen before upon coming here. I don't know why either, said Xie Qianqian. She continued, All right then, don't interrupt again or I'll lose my train of thought. That monster you just mentioned, it kills those roaming souls and the experts who attack them, inserting their blood and souls into the orbs on the bridge. Through my own observation, I found that the energy they're absorbing slowly fades away, and there's no way to tell where it's going. However, based on this blood soul stone, I've started to form a hypothesis. According to reason, even in the life and death realm, that is the nether passage realm, people do not have such powerful souls. There must be some kind of law present that is further purifying their essence to condense these blood soul stones. If a cultivator were to absorb such a thing, they would be able to upgrade their Yuan spirit a second time. It could be said that they are heaven-defying treasures. Unfortunately, the all-devil starfield's human race doesn't specialize in physical strength or spiritual strength. Otherwise, we'd have long since defeated the despicable all-devil race. If you don't have talent in regards to the physical body or the spiritual body, how do you fight back at all? Asked Long Chen. Naturally, it's with our wits. We've created many powerful weapons, flying boats, sets of armor, warships, and other treasures that can increase our power by hundreds or thousands of times. With defensive structures and the skills of our craftsmen, we can use various natural resources to create divine items. Regretfully, here, Xie Qianqian's expression became angry and distressed. Regretfully, while it's possible to defend against the frightening all-devil race, it's the enemies that lie beside us that we can't defend against. Or perhaps it's more accurate to say it's impossible to defend against their greed. In the past few centuries, we've been constantly losing to the all-devil race. Not because we aren't strong enough, but because our commanders are all a bunch of useless pieces of garbage. They are all geniuses, but they only go to the battlefield to dredge up profits for themselves. In truth, their abilities are inferior to even dogs hit. If they were just dogs hit, then that would be something, but despite being amateurs, they have to act like experts. Most hateful of all, they're supported by powerful idiots who clearly know the battle plan is wrong. But instead of punishing them, they blame the fighters. My parents died because of them. That's why I chose to attend the best academy. I'm not only going to kill the all-devil race's monsters, but I'll also be cleaning up our human race's degenerates. I wish you luck. In the end, all Long Chun could say was such a thing. He didn't have high hopes for her. Based on what she said, the all-devil Starfield's human race was also a group of greedy degenerates. A force that was rotten to that extent couldn't be saved. It was no different from the Martial Heaven continent. Long Chun had never even had a thought to try and draw everyone into the righteous path, nor had he ever thought about erasing the greed and wickedness in the hearts of the righteous path. That was because he was well aware of his own capabilities, and such a task was impossible for him. Let alone him, it was impossible even for a god. If gods really could do such a thing, then everyone's faiths would be united. However, because there were so many differences of opinion, there were just as many different faiths. If such a thing was possible, these faiths wouldn't be contradictory and ignite conflict after a battle. Or perhaps this was just the Tao, the merciless and cruel Tao. Long Chun continued grabbing the crystals. He obtained 7 of the life spirit crystals and 9 of the blood-colored crystals. Through Xie Qianqian's appraisal, she determined that of those 9 blood-colored crystals, 3 were blood essence stones and 3 were blood soul stones. Xie Qianqian didn't need those, because the all-devil Starfield already had them. In fact, they had so many that they had to come up with ways to sell them to other Starfields. Other than needing to get through the layers of blockades of the all-devil race, they also had to pay a high transportation fee. Their profits weren't very high. As a result, the blood-colored crystals went to Long Chun, while the life spirit crystals went to Xie Qianqian. However, Xie Qianqian didn't have anywhere to store them. She had no choice but to pour out the life spirit water in her bottles and put the life spirit crystals inside. That aggrieved her, but there was nothing she could do. On the other hand, Long Chun simply sucked them into the primal chaos space. The surrounding crystals were quickly pulled out. There were more ahead, but they were too close to the core, making the two of them not dare to approach. They began to slowly roam the outer regions, looking to get some more crystals. However, the hurricane at the core rapidly expanded. Came without any warning at all. Run! Long Chen's expression changed, and he hastily pushed Xie Qianqian to send the flying boat running. However, the flying boat had just started moving when a terrifying suction force came over them. The flying boat began to fly toward the hurricane out of their control. Not good. Put away the flying boat, shouted Long Chen. The flying boat was too large. If they put it away, perhaps they might have some hope of escaping. Xie Qianqian was panicking, and she hastily slammed a button on the flying boat's control panel. The flying boat instantly transformed into a ray of light that entered Xie Qianqian's head. The image of a flying boat appeared on her forehead. Once the flying boat vanished, they instantly felt a terrifying suction force. They began to fly into the twister in the sky. "Grab hold of me," shouted Long Chen. Evil Moon appeared in his hand. As it was heavier than a mountain, the two of them immediately dropped to the ground. Long Chun stabbed Evil Moon into the hard rock all the way to the hilt. He just barely managed to stabilize himself. Xie Qianqian held on tightly to Long Chen's waist, but her body was already being pulled into the air. That suction force was too terrifying. "Hold on tightly. I can bring you out," called out Long Chen. At this moment, it was like he was on the edge of a rapid waterfall. The pulling force behind him was too great. Just standing there was very difficult. Relying on Evil Moon's weight, he forcibly took a step forward. However, the ground was too flat and smooth. There was nowhere for him to get leverage. "Hold on." Long Chun took a deep breath. He suddenly pulled Evil Moon out and stabbed it back into the ground as quick as lightning. This fierce movement only gained him half a foot of distance. However, that didn't discourage him. In fact, this was a good sign. As long as he could move away, the further he got from the whirlpool, the weaker its pull would be. "Long Chun, I can't hold on any longer." Xie Qianqian was holding on to Long Chun as best as she could. However, her arm strength was limited. "Ah!" Xie Qianqian let out a frightened cry as she lost power in her arms and was sucked away by the whirlpool. Long Chun suddenly extracted Evil Moon and followed the suction force as well. Then, he grabbed Xia Qianqian's arm before stabbing Evil Moon into the ground again. Xia Qianqian was saved, but now they were hundreds of meters closer to the twister. The pull was even stronger. Furthermore, he was now holding on to Xia Qianqian with one hand. He couldn't use the same method he had before. The thing that made his heart grow cold was that he actually couldn't think of anything. He could only keep this position. However, if this continued, he would run out of energy sooner or later. Then they would be sucked into the twister and torn apart. Long Chun, throw her away and you'll have a chance to get out. She's just a burden, said Evil Moon. Long Chun ignored Evil Moon and looked all around. His brain was working rapidly to find some way to get out. He also knew that as long as he let go, then without the burden of an extra person, he would have a high chance of being able to get away. However, while he was no gentleman, he definitely wasn't someone who would abandon his companion in the face of danger. Fool! Do you want to die with her? Raged Evil Moon. Long Chun continued to ignore it. He kicked the ground, trying to make a foothold for himself, but the ground was both tough and slippery. His kicks only caused his foot to hurt. Long Chun, let me go. Perhaps you'll be able to escape on your own, said Xia Qianqian softly as she watched Long Chun struggle. She knew that neither of them would be able to escape like this. She knew this, and she knew Long Chun knew it as well. I'm grateful you didn't abandon me, but it's your only choice, said Xia Qianqian helplessly. Long Chun shook his head. There's always a way. Don't panic. It's useless. If you wait any longer, you'll use up too much energy and won't be able to even save yourself. Thank you. I'm happy to have met you before dying. Light suddenly shone from Xia Qianqian's arm. Long Chun was startled as Xia Qianqian actually slid from his hold. That energy was strange. It was not physical or spiritual energy, but it made it so he couldn't grab hold of her arm. Are you joking? I've never abandoned a companion. Let's have a look at what's inside the whirlpool. Long Chun suddenly pulled Evil Moon out of the ground. The two of them began flying toward the whirlpool. Are you crazy? Two voices rang out at the same time. One was Xia Qianqian's, while the other was Evil Moon's that rang out in his mind. Xia Qianqian's voice was full of shock, while Evil Moon's voice was full of rage. Long Chun held onto Xia Qianqian's waist and didn't reply. With Evil Moon in his right hand, he stared closely at the 9-colored twister. Long Chun's thoughts were definitely not calm at this time. He didn't even know what he was thinking. It wasn't as if he had a relationship with Xia Qianqian. Why did he have to be so stupid as to throw himself into danger? It had just been a kind of instinct. He didn't know if it was because of his own sense of duty or because of the arrogance of the Pill Sovereign, but he couldn't abandon anyone. Even Long Chun didn't know why he would occasionally do such foolish things. Xia Qianqian silently cried as she was held by Long Chun. Ever since her parents had died, no one had ever treated her well, but Long Chun was actually sacrificing his life to accompany her. Don't be so emotional yet. There's still a long way to go before we die. Hold on to my back and hold on tight. I'm going to fight, said Long Chun. Xia Qianqian tightly held onto Long Chun. Her arms were around his neck, and even her legs were wrapped around his waist. As extra precaution, Long Chun pulled out some rope and bound her to him. That way, he didn't need to worry about her falling off. They were getting closer and closer to the twister. Its pull was so powerful that Xia Qianqian felt like she was being crushed. The majority of the pressure was being endured by Long Chun, but she was already in such a state. She clenched her teeth and forced herself to be silent, afraid that the slightest disturbance would affect him. Long Chun's divine ring appeared. The red, orange, yellow, green, and azure streams of water shook for an instant, but they quickly returned to normal. Having summoned the divine ring, Long Chun felt the pressure weaken. However, that pressure quickly grew back as they approached the twister. Long Chun's 30,000-meter divine ring seemed to be squeezed by some kind of force and was constantly shrinking. This was a scenario he had never encountered before. He understood too little about the divine ring. However, as it was compressed, its power grew greater, shocking him. Was this another possible state of the divine ring? Boom! Long Chun was finally sucked into the twister, the core of the whirlpool. He felt like the whole world was squeezing him. Xie Qianqian immediately coughed up blood. She was unable to bear the pressure. Feng Fu Star. Alioth Star. Life Fate Star. Enlightenment Palace Star. Long Chun activated 4 stars at once, forcing back the pressure. This was the core of the 9-colored whirlpool. Here, he saw that the water of the 9 lakes was actually not water. It was composed of countless runes. There were 9 types of energy clashing here, forming a pressure that could crush mountains instantly. Xie Qianqian coughed up blood once more. She was at her limit. Although Long Chun was forcing back the pressure and activating the first 4 stars had won her some breathing room, she eventually fainted. Her physical body is too weak. Long Chun couldn't help shaking his head. He had to focus on resisting the whirlpool. Now that he was sucked within it, he found that he was sinking. It seemed that there was an exit at the bottom. However, the pressure only grew as he sank deeper. Long Chun couldn't resist the pull. He could only slowly sink. As the pressure grew, the divine ring continued to shrink. He paid close attention to its changes because he found that it was growing stronger. Even the power of the 4 stars had changed in an indescribable way. Perhaps I should consider how to compress the divine ring in the future to unleash more power, thought Long Chun. When the divine ring was just 300 meters wide, Xie Qianqian's labored breathing rang out from behind him. The pressure was unendurable. Divine Gate Star. Long Chen's 5th star activated, and the divine ring was restored to its 30,000 meter size. The 5th star was his limit. However, the pressure was still growing greater. He could see the bottom of the whirlpool. It was a mass of darkness, like the gaping maw of a monster waiting for its prey. The divine ring once more compressed from the immense pressure. As for Xie Qianqian, crackling sounds rang out from her bones. "Evil Moon, stop acting dead and help," shouted Long Chun. "Fuck off. Just wait for death. No one will help you," was Evil Moon's cold reply. "Stop being in such a bad mood and help. These are my principles. When you're in trouble in the future, I'll also risk my life to save you," shouted Long Chun. "Scram. Your sappiness is sickening. If you were about to die, I definitely wouldn't save you," cursed Evil Moon. Although it cursed at Long Chun, black light flowed out of it and wrapped around Long Chun and Xie Qianqian. "Little brick, come out too. Your second-rate master decided to throw away his life to pick up a girl. Hurry up and help," called out Evil Moon. The heaven-flipping seal flew out as well. It was just about to grow in size when Evil Moon stopped it. "Fool! If you unleash your divine power, you'll be killed by the laws of this place," cursed Evil Moon. "Can you not be so mean to the heaven-flipping seal?" demanded Long Chun. The heaven-flipping seal was a very obedient child and did whatever Evil Moon told it to do. However, Evil Moon went too far with its bullying. Long Chun had to support the little fellow. Evil Moon and the heaven-flipping seal revolved around Long Chun's body. The heaven-flipping seal's cyan light mixed with Evil Moon's black light, forming a protective barrier. Keep your power well distributed. Don't go directly against the surrounding laws. Long Chun, don't slack. We all have to work together. Evil Moon began to hand out directions. The deeper they sank, the narrower the whirlpool. By the time they were at the bottom, it was a funnel. Long Chen's expression also paled here. The 5-star battle armor was reaching its limit as well. However, he had to maintain it. Without it, perhaps he would be able to survive, but Xie Qianqian's body would instantly be torn apart. Just as he was at his limit, they reached the bottom. They fell into endless darkness. "I'm exhausted. You fool, that energy from the gourd last time was all wasted because of you. Long Chun, tell me, are you a pig?" cursed Evil Moon. It really couldn't understand why Long Chun would be so foolish as to almost throw his own life away to save someone he barely knew. Furthermore, the heaven-flipping seal wasn't skilled enough to cooperate with Evil Moon very well, meaning it had paid 80% of its energy to protect them. Its delight at having conned so much energy from the blood gourd of the corrupt path changed into fury at having lost it all. Long Chun knew that his actions were the peak of foolishness in Evil Moon's eyes. However, in the end, Evil Moon had still helped him out, so Long Chun didn't talk back. It would be fine after it vented. He returned Evil Moon and the heaven-flipping seal to the primal chaos space. Everything around him was pitch black, and he could feel himself slowly descending within the darkness. It was a similar feeling to when he had first come to the netherworld. After an unknown amount of time, he felt himself touch solid ground. He opened his eyes and activated his sixth sense. Through his sixth sense, he managed to see his surroundings. It was a ruined palace. He didn't know if it was because he was too small, but he felt like an ant in a giant's lair. Based on his estimate, this palace was dozens of kilometers high and hundreds of kilometers wide. The place he had landed was on two open hands. The owner of those hands was a giant statue. The statue wasn't standing but kneeling on the ground. Its hands were outstretched before it, as if it was begging for charity. Long Chun calmly sat on the two hands and slowly recovered his energy. Using the 5-star battle armor was extremely taxing on him. As he calmly recovered, he examined Xie Qianqian's injuries. She had lost a grave amount of essence blood. However, when he used spiritual strength to examine her mind-see, he was comforted to find that although her energy was strange to him, she was able to absorb his spiritual strength to aid in her recovery. Just as Long Chun was helping Xie Qianqian recover, an angry roar came from the distance, causing him to jump. He saw the palace gates open. A dozen figures entered while dragging a large body. Those figures weren't large. In fact, they were even smaller than Long Chun. They seemed to be dwarves. They each had a hawk's nose and a monkey's face, as well as black hair on their backs. Other than that, they were no different from humans. They held strange blades in their hands. They were 3-foot-long triangular blades. Although they were extremely far, Long Chun could sense that those strange blades were very terrifying. The dwarfs were pulling a magical beast. The magical beast was 300 meters long and had barbs all over its body. It looked to be an alligator, but it had fur. It was roaring miserably. Long Chun hid himself and looked around carefully. He saw that the dwarfs were also holding chains that were stabbed through the magical beast's body. Creepy laughter came from them, and it gave him a chill. Based on their appearance, they seemed very happy. The dwarves pulled the magical beast directly in front of the statue, causing Long Chun to jump. If they came over, he would instantly be exposed. However, the dwarves stopped right before the statue. The ground beneath them began to sink. There was actually a hidden mechanism present. The original ground sank and an altar rose. The magical beast was chained to the altar by the dwarfs. What are they doing? Is it a sacrifice? Long Chun was curious. The magical beast was constantly roaring, but it was of no use. Despite clearly looking stronger than the dwarves, it could only be manipulated by them. Just as Long Chun was watching them, Xie Qianqian let out a moan as she woke. Long Chun immediately covered her mouth with his hand. Xie Qianqian was startled awake. She realized that she was in Long Chun's embrace, his hand on his mouth and his scent in her nose. She turned red. Long Chun didn't notice that as he was staring closely at the dwarves. He had yet to fully recover, and he had no confidence in winning against them if they noticed him. He sensed great danger from them. Although Xie Qianqian's voice was cut short by Long Chun and hadn't been very loud, it had still drawn their attention. The dwarves began looking in every direction. At this moment, the magical beast that they had bound to the altar let out another roar. The dwarves focused on it again. Long Chun wiped off some sweat. Xie Qianqian had really woken at the worst time. The magical beast had been briefly silent at that moment. Otherwise, she wouldn't have even drawn their attention. Long Chun suddenly felt his hand itch. Xie Qianqian was scratching his hand, indicating that he could let go. Only then did Long Chun release her. Xie Qianqian looked out through the gap between the statue's fingers. Skinners! Xie Qianqian turned pale. She transmitted a message to Long Chun spiritually. Long Chun could sense her terror. Long Chun, we might have. Just at this moment, the skinners began to wield their blades. They slowly stabbed the beast's stomach. It seemed they were about to skin it. The magical beast roared as if it was in incredible pain. However, its roars only made the dwarves laugh, as if its tormented cries were their greatest delight. "We might have what?" asked Longchun. He had a bad premonition. "We might have arrived in purgatory. This might be the Skinner purgatory." Xie Qianqian's face was as pale as paper. Longchun was stunned. How could that be possible? How could a good person like him end up in purgatory? In our myths, there are certain sayings about purgatory. I was curious, so I read up on those stories. There was a picture in one of those stories that looks just like these dwarves. They're called skinners. They are jailers of the first level of purgatory. Their chains and skinning blades are all terrifying magical weapons. Once they stab the body, they cause indescribable pain. Their skinning doesn't just skin the body, it skins the soul as well. Have you noticed? That magical beast doesn't seem to be composed of the same substance as us. Longchun nodded. This magical beast truly didn't seem to be in the same form as them. As its body was skinned, its blood poured out, and they could see its innards. Rumor is that once the skinners capture the spiritual body in the netherworld, they even pull in the physical body from the other world, said Xie Qianqian. Her entire body was quivering in terror. Death sometimes wasn't so terrifying. However, rumor was that once a person entered purgatory, they wouldn't die again. Instead, they would suffer endless pain. That was the real terror. Fuck. This is definitely my bad luck acting up again. Humph, it really was vicious this time. It even brought me for a stroll through purgatory, cursed Longchun. Those dwarves were skillfully cutting off the magical beast's skin. Each time they made a cut, the magical beast would let out a hair-raising cry. It was clearly in immense pain. The dwarves' blades worked rapidly as they laughed sinisterly. Their movements weren't sloppy in the least. It wasn't long before all the magical beast's skin was stripped off. The dwarves pulled the pelt and examined it for something. They were speaking amongst themselves, seeming to be discussing something. They quickly left along with the pelt, leaving only a bloody magical beast behind that was still crying miserably. Once the dwarves were gone, Xie Qianqian quietly said, "The reason they aren't killing it is because they're waiting for it to grow back its skin, so they can skin it again." Long Chen's heart shook. This was too vicious. Just skinning it once wasn't enough? They would skin it for eternity? If the life forms in purgatory were unable to die, then that magical beast's fate was truly miserable. According to the myths, the place we're in should be the first of the 18 levels of purgatory, the Skinner purgatory, said Xie Qianqian. Her voice quivered. That magical beast's current state was about to be their future. The Skinner purgatory? I've never heard of such a thing in my world, said Longchen. He had heard that there were 18 levels to hell, but that was all. Who knows why? However, based on what we've seen, I'm almost 100% sure that we're in the first level of purgatory, said Xie Qianqian. Then good thing it's not the 18th level. We still have a chance to get out. That's impossible. Once past the gates to purgatory, it's impossible to leave. Xie Qianqian couldn't help but cry. She was afraid. It was impossible to not be afraid in purgatory. Thinking of the pain they would suffer if the Skinners found them, she felt faint. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Everything in this world has a weakness or flaw. Even the best cage has to have a hole. There is nothing perfect in this world, so as long as we don't give up, there should be a chance to escape, comforted Longchun. I'm sorry, Longchun. If I didn't suggest looking for treasures, you wouldn't have been implicated. You even had a chance to escape. But the two of them were just cooperating. There really had been no need for him to take the risk, but he had been willing to throw himself in here for her. Other than feeling emotionally moved, she felt terrible for bringing this upon him. You didn't implicate me. Those blood essence stones and blood soul stones are very useful to me. That's why there's the expression that man will die for riches. My Tao is called see a treasure and can't walk away. I'm used to it, laughed Longchun. He had long since grown used to his bad luck. If he wanted to gain something, he had to risk his life. Even at this time, you can still laugh? Xie Qianqian wiped away her tears. Even at this time, Long Chun was still relaxed. That did comfort her a bit. His smile gave her the slightest shred of hope. Let's just slowly recover. Once we've pretty much recovered, we'll look around to see just how deep purgatory is. Long Chun and Xie Qianqian slowly recovered on the statue's hands. Eventually, they felt they had recovered as much as they were going to. They felt like their recovery speed had increased here, but it was also difficult to sense the flow of time. The two of them had barely recovered when they heard a miserable cry. Long Chun looked out to see that those dwarves had appeared once more. The magical beast had also recovered and grown its skin out again. Its miserable cries were because the skinners had begun their work again. Skinning it. Long Chun felt a chill. No wonder it was said that people shouldn't do bad things while alive. This skinning torture was absolutely terrifying. Once they fell into purgatory, they would have to suffer endless pain for eternity. With his energy mostly recovered, Long Chun sensed that magical beast's aura clearer. It was at the level of an expert attacking the Nether Passage realm. However, such a powerful existence couldn't resist at all in the hands of these dwarves. In the end, its newly grown skin was stripped away, and the dwarves left once more. Once they left, Xie Qianqian and Long Chun jumped off the statue's hands and approached the chained magical beast. Long Chun reached out and grabbed one of the chains. He instantly felt like his body had been thrown into ice. Felt like even his soul was about to freeze. Damn, it's just as strong as the Blue Lake's ice chi. But why does this magical beast not seem to react to it? Wondered Long Chun. Let's go, urged Xie Qianqian. I don't want to let something good get away. One of the chains was forcibly torn off by Long Chun. Despite how strong they were, they couldn't stand up to Evil Moon. You're mad. They're going to notice, exclaimed Xie Qianqian. Don't worry, I'll just sneak away too. These chains are very strange, and I want them. After tearing off 2 chains, the blood-covered magical beast that had been on its last breaths suddenly let out a furious roar. What a strong, baleful aura. Just how many lives did it slaughter? Long Chun could now sense the endless baleful aura coming from it. That wasn't its own energy, but the result of all the resentment of the life forms that had been unwillingly slain by it. Brother, go ahead and cry. We're leaving. Long Chun ignored the magical beast. Neither the magical beast nor the skinners were good existences. He had no urge to save it. He pulled Xie Qianqian out of the palace. Once they were out of the gates, they saw a long promenade. The ground and walls were pitch black and filled with an aura of death. Long Chun spread his divine sense and found that there were countless hallways that intersected. It was like a labyrinth. Even when he spread his divine sense dozens of miles out, he couldn't cover the entire labyrinth. You lead the way, said Long Chun helplessly. Me? Yes, my luck's very bad. If you had me lead the way, the exit would probably be on the last possible route. The only possibility in this maze was to walk around blindly. They would have to draw a map as they went. Once the map was finished, they would be able to find the exit. Long Chun was so confident in his bad luck that he knew that if he didn't finish drawing the entire map, it would be impossible to chance upon the exit. All right, Xie Qianqian nodded and started to lead the way. The two of them were both going carefully. They saw this maze had countless palaces. Some of them were empty, and some larger ones had various lifeforms bound within it. They were strange lifeforms that Long Chun had never seen before. Wait! Long Chun suddenly grabbed Xie Qianqian. He scratched Evil Moon on the wall and rubbed the resulting dust onto his face and body, covering himself with the aura of death. Smart! Xie Qianqian followed along, covering herself in the dust. They might not have been sensed in the palace by those skinners, but they had been rather far away. There was no way to tell at what distance they would be able to sense their aura or spiritual fluctuations. The two of them continued, with Xie Qianqian leading the way and Long Chun recording the path they had taken. He told Xie Qianqian to follow the right wall and not to skip any corners. That way they would be able to finish the map faster. As they were walking, one of the nearby palace gates opened, and Long Chun immediately pulled Xie Qianqian into a dark corner. Another group of skinners walked past them. At this close a distance, they realized that the skinners were even smaller than they had thought. They only reached Long Chen's waist in height. However, they each held a frightening chain and a sharp blade. Xie Qianqian felt like her heart was about to leap out of her chest being this close to them. Long Chun was also on high alert as they passed by, ready to attack if they sensed anything. Fortunately, they were excitedly talking to each other and didn't notice that there were two people hidden in the dark. Xie Qianqian sighed with relief. Once those skinners passed, they continued. They encountered several more groups, but due to Long Chen's strong spiritual perception, they managed to avoid them at every turn. Eventually, they saw a giant pillar ahead of them. Countless runes were flickering like stars within it. It emitted a great pressure that caused the world to quiver. "That's probably the exit," said Long Chun. He could see a winding staircase going up the pillar. The pillar was 50,000 meters wide and had a winding staircase around it. However, it was so tall that it was impossible to see its end. One could see a path going down it as well. "This is probably the path up and down," exclaimed Long Chun. There were several 30-meter statues around the pillar. They had short legs and thick arms. They were incredibly lifelike, with each vein on their bulging muscles visible. "It's very likely, but when we get there we'll be instantly noticed." "That place is too empty," said Xie Qianqian worriedly. Several skinners were roving around this region. They would definitely notice them. Long Chun sank into thought and then shook his head. "We'll have to gamble. When intelligence cannot solve a problem, you can only rely on power." Long Chun slowly took out Evil Moon, a sharp light appearing in his eyes. He was like a stalking cheetah in the dark. "Shouldn't we prepare more?" asked Xie Qianqian. This was too dangerous. If they didn't succeed, they wouldn't get another chance. "No need. I've checked the map, and this place should be the core region. Even if we waited longer, we wouldn't be able to increase our odds. I also can't stay too long in this place. But don't worry. I promise that as long as I manage to survive, you will too." Xie Qianqian couldn't help feeling comfort at the sight of Long Chen's firm expression. She actually believed he was speaking the truth. His confident appearance inspired confidence in others. Xie Qianqian nodded and took a deep breath. Just like that, the two of them began rushing toward the giant pillar. The surrounding skinners were all startled. They let out strange cries and attacked. "Don't worry. Just stay beside me." Long Chen's steps didn't pause as he pulled Xie Qianqian's hand. Quick as lightning, he went past the first skinner, slashing it. The skinner instantly exploded. However, the blood mist it had exploded into slowly recondensed into its original form. Rumor is that skinners are the jailers of this level of purgatory. As long as the skinner purgatory isn't destroyed, they will forever revive, called out Xie Qianqian. Two more skinners came from the sides, as well as the original skinner that had just reformed. Holding a chain in one hand and a triangular blade in the other, they attacked. "Humph! Revive forever? What's so amazing about that?" Long Chun unleashed a huge saber image that crushed the three skinners. They weren't particularly powerful, and their bodies were very weak. Their only strong points were their chains and blades. This time, as soon as he killed them, he waved his hand and sucked their chains and blades into the primal chaos space. "I'm confiscating your cheat tools." After killing them and taking their weapons, Long Chun rushed off with Xie Qianqian. As for the three skinners he had slain, once they reformed, they didn't attack again. Instead, they began to grope around as if they were looking for their lost tools. "Excellent! Without their chains or blades, they're crippled!" cried out Xie Qianqian excitedly. Long Chun smiled faintly and didn't reply. Based on his experience, things definitely wouldn't go this simply. Long Chun killed all the skinners that blocked his path and quickly took their weapons. However, his fighting caused a disturbance that caused countless skinners to come from every direction. They appeared to number in the tens of thousands. Xie Qianqian's face instantly turned pale as there were so many. If any of their blades or chains stabbed through Long Chun, the two of them would be doomed. Those weapons carried the laws of this place. Once stabbed, they would become prey that the Skinners would torture for eternity. Whirlwind slash. Long Chun suddenly grabbed Xie Qianqian by the waist and leaped into the air. A black saber image devoured the surrounding Skinners. The sound of their bodies exploding rang out one by one. Long Chun was too fast and only had time to take some of their weapons as he rushed off. With just his own saber raining down attacks, he barged his way through them. Xie Qianqian was feeling more and more hopeful as they got closer to the pillar. Long Chun was much stronger than she had expected. Just as they were getting close to it, the land shook. The statues around it began to move. Those statues had manacles on their wrists. As soon as Long Chun approached them, one of them smashed both its fists at him. The immense power gave Long Chun a suffocating feeling. This was his first time encountering such power. He instinctively dodged. The statue's fists smashed into the ground. The entire palace swayed with a rumbling sound. Although the attack missed, the shockwaves sent Long Chun flying. Fortunately, the Skinners were blown to bits by the shockwaves. "That's a loather," cried out Xie Qianqian. "What are loathers?" asked Long Chun. "I don't know either. The stories just say that loathers are the warriors of a giant race. They are incredibly powerful. It's said that they hate that heaven and earth have no handle. That's because they're so powerful that they have no suitable weapons. So they wish they could use heaven and earth as their weapons." Xie Qianqian cried out as she flew through the air. That wasn't from being blown away, but because Long Chun had tossed her. Xie Qianqian landed on the staircase of the pillar. She was many meters high now, while the loathers and Skinners were all focused on Long Chun. They completely ignored her. Hating heaven and earth for not having a handle? What arrogant words. I'm impressed by that bragging. Let's see just how strong you really are. Boom. Long Chun's saber slashed onto a loather's wrist. The loathers all had chained manacles on their wrists. Long Chun's attack didn't injure it at all. Instead, he himself was blown back. Now his battle intent was truly ignited. Divine Ring. A 5-colored divine ring appeared, a 5-point star within it. A hallowed aura surged out, even forcing back the air of purgatory. Feng Fu Star. Alioth Star. Life Fate Star. Evil Moon slashed out mercilessly at one of the loathers. Their attacks clashed and they were even. Enlightenment Palace Star. Boom. Their stalemate was instantly broken, and the loather was forced back. However, Long Chun was shocked. These loathers were truly powerful. They were relying purely on the power of their physical bodies. Right after he forced back one, another 4 loathers immediately charged at him. Divine Gate Star. A pillar of light soared into the sky, lighting up this world. Split the Heavens 6. A huge saber image swept through all the loathers, slaying them. After killing them, Long Chun ran for the pillar. That attack had contained his full power and had slain all the surrounding loathers and Skinners. However, that was useless. This was purgatory while they were the overseers. They would revive over and over again. Taking advantage of while they had yet to reform, Long Chun sped up the staircase. He quickly caught up to Xie Qianqian and began to pull her along. The two of them rushed up like a wild gale. Their power really wasn't fake. Long Chun had only managed to settle them by using the 5-star battle armor and the 6th form of Split the Heavens. However, while he still had enough energy to unleash this attack one more time, they would just keep reviving. The loathers let out a furious roar and began to bound up the staircase. They were like nimble monkeys, and they were even faster than Long Chun. "Here, get on my back. I'm going to use my full speed." Long Chun put Xie Qianqian on his back. Thunder force circulated around him as he sped up, looking like a bolt of lightning. Their immense speed caused a powerful tearing force that made Xie Qianqian feel like her body would explode. However, she knew this was a critical moment. She gritted her teeth and endured it. "Ha ha ha! We made it!" Long Chun suddenly laughed as he saw the top. There was black light there. Without hesitation, he charged into it. When Long Chun vanished into the black light, the loathers let out a furious roar, but they didn't dare to follow him there. When Long Chun charged into that black light, he immediately felt like he had landed in glue-like water. He found himself unable to move. This strange water was binding him, and he couldn't shake it off. Long Chen's heart immediately sank. Was he about to be trapped in here for eternity? Let me. Xie Qianqian suddenly opened her eyes. A white rune appeared on her forehead, and it transformed into a bright crescent moon that dispersed the sticky water. The light from Xie Qianqian enveloped the two of them, forcing the water away. The two of them began to float up in a bubble. At least I showed some value in the end, said Xie Qianqian with a smile. Ever since encountering Long Chun, she had felt herself to be useless. She had even brought him down. But now she was able to help him resolve a predicament. That gratified her. This water possesses a strange energy that exists between the corporeal and incorporeal, a cross between reality and illusion. That's why no matter how strong you are, you can't do anything to it. It just so happens that the mental energy I cultivate is also between the corporeal and incorporeal, allowing me to block it, explained Xie Qianqian. So that's what it was. The world really is large. I'm just a frog at the bottom of a well, sighed Long Chun. He truly knew little about the greater world. What are you talking about? You're the bravest, strongest warrior I've ever seen. If you can come to my All-Devil Starfield, then once I finish my studies, I'll definitely create a set of battle armor that will increase your power by 100 times. You'll be undefeatable, said Xie Qianqian excitedly. In the All-Devil Starfield, the human warriors weren't very powerful. They relied on their tactics and inventions, creating powerful sets of armor to fight against the All-Devil race. 100 times increase? Long Chun jumped in shock. Actually, 100 times would just be a base number. If the armor perfectly suits your bloodline power, you'll be able to unleash even greater power. Unfortunately, I don't even know what place you're from, and I won't be able to find you once we leave, said Xie Qianqian sadly. Don't be sad. I had no idea the outer world was so big before. But now that I know, I'll definitely have to go out and see it. I'll definitely come to find you. And if I didn't go looking for you, one of my brothers would start crying and making a fuss, laughed Long Chun. He thought of Guoran. It seemed that the place Xie Qianqian was from was perfectly suited for Guoran. He would definitely go crazy trying to get there. Really? Great. Xie Qianqian excitedly held Long Chen's hand. My All-Devil Starfield isn't too big. It only contains 3,600 stars. The black stars belong to the All-Devil race, while the red stars are our territory. It's easy to look for. When you go to the All-Devil Starfield, go to any red star and ask for the All-Devil Slaying Dragon Academy. Everyone knows about it. I made so much profit this time. Not only will I be able to pay for my tuition, but it'll also be enough to buy all kinds of material, experimental equipment, and various tools. So you definitely have to come find me. I swear I'll make you the strongest armor in all of history. All right, it just so happens that I want to know more about the All-Devil race. I'll take a trip there sooner or later, said Long Chin. The All-Devil monster he had encountered in Pill Valley's Heaven Dragon Flame region had said that Lord Brahma was someone who had betrayed his master. Long Chun felt an intense hatred for Lord Brahma and Fallen Day Night that came from within his bones. If the Nirvana scripture was created by Lord Brahma, then he should feel hatred for it as well, but he felt very familiar and close to the Nirvana scripture instead. This riddle had always disturbed him. Now that he knew the outside world was so big, he definitely had to take a trip there. He felt a constant sense of crisis when it came to the Pill Sovereign memories and the origins of the 9-star hegemon body art. However, there was nothing he could do about that right now. He could only take things step by step. Here, let's pinky swear. You will have to come and find me. Xie Qianqian extended a hand with her pinky finger raised. Long Chun laughed involuntarily. Xie Qianqian was really still a child inside. Having lost her parents suddenly had a big impact on her, forcing her to mature and become strong. However, inside her hard outer appearance was a kind, childish heart. Long Chun also raised his pinky and locked it with hers. This could also count as a promise. The two of them continued floating up, finally reaching the surface of the water. They looked around to see an endless black ocean. Above it was a layer of primal chaos. There was a full moon shining brightly within the primal chaos. It lit up the black water. That was a strange sight. In truth, that moon was no moon. It was a circular hole, but due to the distance, it looked like a moon. "That should be the exit," exclaimed Xie Qianqian. Although the two of them were floating on the water, the laws of the netherworld were still present. They couldn't fly and they couldn't jump up there. Xie Qianqian took a deep breath and circulated her mental energy. The two of them began to slowly float toward the sky. "Hey, wait a second." Suddenly, Evilmoon's voice rang out in Long Chen's mind. Ever since they had been sucked into the whirlpool and it had been forced to use up all its energy to protect Long Chen, Evil Moon had gone silent. Long Chen knew that it was furious at him for being an idiot, and so it was ignoring him. As for Long Chen, he wasn't foolish enough to try talking to it in its mood. Why bother getting himself cursed out? However, he was surprised that Evil Moon would take the initiative to speak to him. "Qianqian, wait a moment." Long Chen quickly stopped Xie Qianqian. "Evil Moon, what is it?" Well, sometimes your actions aren't entirely wrong." Evil Moon hemmed and hawed. "What? If you have something to say, then just say it," said Long Chen. "Fine, then I'll say it directly. I sensed a treasure in the water here. It'll be very useful to me," said Evil Moon awkwardly. Hearing that, Long Chen immediately understood why Evil Moon was hemming and hawing. It was embarrassed. It had cursed Long Chen in its fury for being stupid and saving Xie Qianqian. But now there was something it needed in this place that they only came to because Long Chen had entered with Xie Qianqian. All its fury ended up being thrown back into its face. However, that treasure had to be very important to it, or it wouldn't thicken its face to ask for Long Chen's help. Long Chen couldn't help but smile. If he mocked it a bit, he would definitely fully avenge all the cursing it gave him, but he didn't do so. Although Evil Moon was an evil weapon, it was very prideful. Harming others to make oneself feel amazing was the most foolish thing to do. Long Chen definitely didn't want to end up like the old man and Chu Jianying, hurting each other each time they opened their mouths. Long Chen pointed. "Qianqian, can you go in that direction first? There's something I need there." "All right." Xie Qianqian didn't know what he wanted to do, but she brought him slowly floating in that direction. When they got closer to the spot Evil Moon had indicated, Xie Qianqian turned pale. There was a giant black dragon lying on top of the water. It emitted a terrifying pressure. Even Long Chen jumped in fright. There was actually a black dragon here. When he looked at its sharp fangs, he felt a stabbing pain in his soul. "What is that?" demanded Long Chen. This is a close relative of my dark evil dragon race. They're called purgatory evil dragons. It seems it had its dragon soul extracted and its corpse tossed here. However, its soul essence is still intact. That soul essence is perfect for me. I have to get it," said Evil Moon. Its fury had completely vanished. Clearly, this purgatory evil dragon's soul essence was much better for it than the energy it had obtained from the blood gourd. Long Chen slowly approached the dragon's corpse. Xie Qianqian was starting to pant, as she was unable to endure the dragon's pressure. "Qianqian, back up for now." Long Chen grabbed onto one of the purgatory evil dragon's scales and climbed up. The purgatory evil dragon was extremely terrifying. Its pressure rendered the laws present ineffective. He was able to move freely on its body without being stuck by the strange sticky energy present. Once he climbed up, he came to fully appreciate just how huge the corpse was. It had to be measured in the thousands of miles. "Evil Moon, was your body this big originally as well?" "Of course I was even bigger. Stop wasting words and go to its head. We have to extract its soul essence," urged Evil Moon. Long Chen climbed upward. He had to run a while on the dragon's body to get to its head. Fuck. Just a head is hundreds of miles wide. Long Chen looked at the two soaring dragon horns with amazement. "Keep going forward. A bit more." "Okay. Stop here," directed Evil Moon. Long Chen took a deep breath and stabbed Evil Moon into the skull. Evil Moon unleashed a burst of light and instantly grew larger, stabbing deep into the dragon's skull. The dead purgatory evil dragon suddenly began to rumble and explode. Powerful shockwaves blew Xie Qianqian far into the distance, making Long Chun jump in shock. Don't worry. Its dragon soul has long since vanished. This is just an instinctual twitching from having its soul essence stabbed, said Evil Moon. Evil Moon was like a heavenly blade now. Long Chun felt like an ant in front of it. Light flowed around Evil Moon as it absorbed the soul essence of the Purgatory Evil Dragon. As it said, the Purgatory Evil Dragon was already dead, and its movements were just an automatic reaction. Evil Moon didn't need Long Chen's help to absorb its energy, so Long Chun ran over to the skull's crown. What sharp teeth! Dragon teeth are definitely good stuff. Long Chen's eyes began to shine. He jumped beside the teeth. Each tooth was as large as a mountain. When he punched it, it caused a metallic ringing, but the tooth didn't budge. Instead, Long Chen's fist hurt. Just at this moment, Evil Moon flew out of the skull and returned to its original size. However, its aura was now darker and more sinister. It had clearly benefited greatly. Hey, don't just help yourself. I want this Purgatory Evil Dragon. Help me take it. Long Chun formed a hand seal and circulated the primal chaos space. A vortex appeared behind him. Evil Moon let out a startled cry. You can't take it. It's Dash. Before it could finish speaking, the Purgatory Evil Dragon's corpse was pulled into the air by Long Chen's power. However, before it could be absorbed into the primal chaos space, countless chains flew out of the black water. They instantly bound Long Chun and the Purgatory Evil Dragon. Fuck. I forgot to tell him the corpse is locked by a formation. If anyone tries to take it, they'll provoke the laws present. Evil Moon hastily flew into the air, slashing the chains. Bang! The chains completely rejected Evil Moon's attack and sent it flying back. Not good. I can't break these chains, shouted Evil Moon. These chains contained the laws of purgatory. In its current sealed state, there was no way it could sever them. In the distance, Xie Qianqian jumped in shock. She panicked as Long Chun and the giant dragon were bound by countless black chains. In the end, they turned into a giant black star. It was a terrifying seal. Long Chun. Xie Qianqian had no idea what to do. Her best option would be to abandon Long Chun and fly away to the only exit. She knew she couldn't help, but she also couldn't just leave him. Her mind was blank. Evil Moon repeatedly attacked the ball of chains, but it couldn't break them. Long Chun, you can't die yet. You still haven't undone my seal, roared Evil Moon. However, it felt like each of its attacks was landing on cotton. It was unable to find any spot to unleash its power. Boom! Suddenly, the chains exploded, and the Purgatory Evil Dragon's corpse was sent flying. Where the ball of chains had been was Long Chun, black chi circulating around him. Endless negative emotions exploded out of him, shocking Xie Qianqian. Long Chun. Xie Qianqian felt that Long Chun was like a completely different person. The current Long Chun looked like an Asura who had slaughtered countless people. He was covered in killing intent. Long Chen's eyes had turned red, and that red was the red of fresh blood. They were glaringly bright. His hair was standing on end as if he had entered a berserk state. A little purgatory thinks it can trap me? What a joke! Long Chen's voice was the same yet also different. It was like there were two voices overlapping. One that was Long Chen's, and the other that belonged to someone she didn't know. This is... Evil Moon was also shocked. Long Chen raised his head and roared. The chains he had shattered were in the midst of flying back and resealing him when they were blown to dust by his roar. A terrifying ripple spread through the air, tearing apart space. This was an unstoppable power, one that even Purgatory would have to submit to. Huge waves exploded on the black ocean. As it raged, more chains flew out of it at Long Chun. Scram! Those chains were turned to dust. Long Chun no longer appeared human. He was like a god from hell. None of the laws here could subdue him. Is a little purgatory so amazing? Today, I, Long Chun, will completely destroy all your 18 layers. The black chi surging out of Long Chun enveloped him, and he was about to charge back into the black ocean when Evil Moon slammed the back of his head with its hilt, knocking him unconscious. "He's been possessed. Hurry and bring him away," shouted Evil Moon at Xie Qianqian. It returned to Long Chen's primal chaos space. Xie Qianqian was still a bit stunned. Things had happened so suddenly that she didn't even know what was happening. She hastily grabbed the unconscious Long Chen and unleashed her mental energy to float through the air. The ocean and the air were filled with that sticky spatial law, making it impossible to fly quickly. However, she was comforted to see that once Long Chen was unconscious and Evil Moon disappeared, the raging ocean returned to calm. No more chains came flying out. What's going on? How could there be another kind of energy hiding within Long Chen's body? Evil Moon was deeply shocked. Just now, Long Chen had transformed into someone else. Fortunately, his subconscious still viewed it as a partner, or it wouldn't have been able to knock him unconscious. The state Long Chen had just been in made Evil Moon feel very uneasy. There was something hidden in Long Chen's body that made it feel afraid. They finally got close to the white light. Without Xie Qianqian having to do anything, a suction force came from the white light, drawing them inside. Xie Qianqian felt the world spinning around her. It was like space was thrown into chaos. She almost fainted. After a moment, she let out a startled cry as she found that the two of them were falling from the sky. The two of them dropped onto the ground. Long Chen landed first, while Xie Qianqian landed on him. They rolled like calabashes. Long Chen slowly opened his eyes from the collision. "It hurts." Long Chen reached out and rubbed the back of his head, feeling a large bump. He thought that it was from falling and was about to say something when he saw several lifeforms around them, staring at them in shock. "This is the gates of hell?" Long Chen looked around and saw the large gates he had seen before. He let out a delighted cry. They really had come out alive. "Zigaluka?" One of the lifeforms shouted at Long Chen and Xie Qianqian as they stood. Long Chen sent it flying with a slap. "Fuck. I didn't run from purgatory to listen to your ugly words. If you don't want to die, then back up." Although he had no idea what it had been saying, based on its appearance, he could tell it had no kind intentions. That lifeform roared and charged at Long Chen, its hands transforming into two sharp claws. "Since you're in such a rush to reincarnate, I'll help you out." Long Chen sneered and took out Evil Moon, slashing it. The lifeform exploded into dust. The surrounding lifeforms all backed up in fright. They had just seen Long Chen and Xie Qianqian fly out of the gates of hell. Naturally, they questioned what they were and what the situation was inside. One of them had paid the price for that. The other lifeforms all stared at the weapon in Long Chen's hand in fright and backed up. "Let's go." Long Chen pulled Xie Qianqian away from the other lifeforms. Those lifeforms immediately got out of their way. They arrived at where the staircase was. As expected, Xie Qianqian had walked the orange path, and Long Chen couldn't see the staircase here. That was one of the laws present. Each person could only go through their own path. "Long Chen, I'm going to leave. You have to come find me in the future." Xie Qianqian looked at Long Chen. Her eyes reddened slightly. They were about to go on different paths. Although the time she had known Long Chen was short, she had great trust in him. He was the first person she felt any trust in after her parents had died. "Don't worry. Study hard once you get back. I'm looking forward to your strongest battle armor." Long Chen smiled warmly and patted Xie Qianqian's head. Xie Qianqian waved goodbye and began climbing a seemingly invisible staircase. Eventually, Xie Qianqian vanished from Long Chen's sight. Once she was gone, Long Chen didn't directly go to the black region to find his staircase. Instead, he returned to the gates of hell. When he was once more standing before the gates of hell, a sinister smile appeared on his face, one that frightened all the other lifeforms. What had this vicious person come back for? "Long Chen, what are you planning? Don't tell me you want to tear off the doors!" exclaimed Evil Moon. "Why would you say that? Am I such an unreasonable person? Look at how big this door is. There's no way I can carry such a thing," said Long Chen. "Stop trying to fake it. After knowing you all this long, I've never once seen you be a reasonable person. Don't be a fool, warned Evil Moon. Evil Moon had originally thought that its guts were pretty big. After all, it had dared to challenge a sovereign, which had resulted in it paying a miserable price. However, after knowing Long Chun, it felt itself to be a coward in comparison. Long Chun couldn't be described as just having big guts. No, he was a madman. Don't worry, I have a plan. Evil Moon, help me out. Don't you think you should help me get some trump cards? Long Chun smiled mischievously. What are you planning? Do you see the nail on the lower left of the door? I want to take it. Long Chun pointed to a nail on the huge door. There were countless nails on this giant door. The door was pitch black, but the nails emitted divine light. They were definitely something good. Are you crazy? You want to take the nails of the gates of hell? Roared Evil Moon. Was this something a sane person would think of? Riches naturally had to be taken from danger. Long Chun ignored Evil Moon's roaring. He looked at the blood essence stones, blood soul stones, as well as the chains and blades from the skinners that he had in his primal chaos space. He couldn't help but sigh. This time, his trip had been very profitable. In fact, Long Chun had an urge to go take a look at the second level of purgatory to see what else he could get. Right now, though, it was the nails that made him excited. You madman, the gates of hell definitely have their own restrictions on them. If you take a nail, it will definitely disturb some terrifying existence, shouted Evil Moon. We'll just try it. Worst case, we turn and run. Furthermore, I feel like these gates only allow people through but not out. Whatever's inside should also be restricted and not able to come out. What do you think? Well, that does seem logical, but this is way too dangerous. With my current power, there's no way for me to fight against the existences here. If something unexpected happens, we won't even have a place to cry, said Evil Moon. It's fine, let's just try it. If we succeed, I'll have gained another terrifying trump card. Long Chun didn't waste any more time trying to convince Evil Moon. He ran directly to the door. All the life forms attacking the Nether Passage realm fell back. The sight of Long Chun killing that powerful life form before had shocked them. None of them dared to fight against him. Once Long Chun was close enough, he jumped up and began to run along the door to get higher. He only reached the nail after half an incense stick's worth of time. Only once he was there did he realize the doornail was even larger than what he had thought. Just this single doornail had a diameter of thousands of meters. In front of this nail, Long Chun was like a dragonfly trying to shake a tree. Evil Moon stabbed into a crack between the nail and the door. Long Chun slowly began to push. Evil Moon, are you all right? Don't worry, although I haven't recovered my power, my body is hard enough, said Evil Moon. Long Chun began to use his full power, forcing the nail out of the door. As he increased his power, the nail began to shudder. The life forms stared lifelessly at Long Chun's actions. When they saw that he wanted to take the door, they all turned green and began to shout. It really is possible. Long Chun saw that the nail was starting to rise slowly. However, as the nail slowly rose, the gates of hell began to shake. At the same time, divine might crashed down. The life forms all fled for their lives. Long Chun, I think we should just let it go. I'm feeling dizzy, shouted Evil Moon. We'll finish it in one burst. Long Chun shouted, and he activated his divine ring and 5-star battle armor. Boom! The world shook as the huge nail flew out of the gates of hell. At that instant, a berserk aura came from within the gates of hell. Terrifying killing intent filled the world. The small crack of the 2 doors opened wider. Is a monster about to come out? In that instant, Long Chun felt a chill as some kind of energy locked onto him. Lightning flashed on his feet and lightning wings appeared on his back. He tossed the nail into the primal chaos space and fled. A huge hand suddenly came out of the gates of hell and reached toward Long Chun. Bye. However, Long Chun was too fast. He reached the whirlpool in an instant and fled up the staircase near the Black Lake. The hand missed. Just as Long Chun thought that the danger had passed, that hand snaked up from below and reached out for him again. It can curve like this? Long Chun let out a startled cry and slashed Evil Moon at it. Boom! Long Chun was sent flying up the waterfall. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, feeling like his body was about to break apart. He couldn't help being shocked. That hand contained the laws of this world. His power was unable to block it. Originally, going from the bottom to the top would have required a long time, but thanks to the attack, he flew out like a shooting star. Borrowing its power, he began to flee along the wooden logs. However, the huge hand followed him, once more slamming toward him. It was too big to dodge. Long Chun let out a furious roar and attacked. However, his saber image exploded, and he coughed up blood once more. How can this thing be so strong? Raged Long Chun. How could it not be so strong? It's condensed by the laws of this place. It won't stop until it kills you, said Evil Moon irritably. Long Chun was repeatedly blown back by the hand. He repeatedly coughed up blood. However, its attacks also increased Long Chun's speed. He quickly saw the bridge ahead of him. Just a bit more. Hope appeared in Long Chun's eyes. As long as he returned to the gate, he would be able to leave the netherworld. Boom! Long Chun blocked once more and was sent flying by the large hand. This time, he smashed into one of the monstrosities on the bridge. The two of them tumbled back. The monstrosity's eyes suddenly turned sharp, and runes revolved around it as it attacked Long Chun. Long Chun immediately grabbed hold of its chain and gave it a vicious slap in the face, also wresting the chains from it. The chains transformed into divine runes that attacked him like millions of vipers. They actually weren't true chains. Raging flames incinerate the heavens. Golden flames exploded out of him, burning the runes around him into ashes. As for the large hand, it returned, striking again. It seemed it really wouldn't stop until he was dead. Long Chun had no time to deal with it. He ran, barely dodging its attack. The strike ended up breaking the bridge. Long Chun fled as fast as he could. He quickly saw many gates open in the darkness. He had already determined which one was the old man's, and just as he was about to run through, he came to a stop. He was being followed by that large hand. What if when he fled, the hand destroyed the old man's gate? Then the old man wouldn't be able to return. Fuck! Why didn't I think of this problem? Long Chun was vexed. He couldn't go through the other gates, because once he did, he would enter that person's body. Who knew whether these gates would lead to the body of a human or a demon? What if they led to a completely different starfield? One mistake, and he would never be able to return to the Martial Heaven continent. The hand once more slammed toward him. Long Chun blocked it again, but this time his bones almost shattered. He felt like he was reaching his limit. What do I do? Long Chun's heart raced. There was no other choice. He could only randomly pick a door. No matter what, he couldn't implicate the old man. Just as he was preparing to randomly pick a gate to go through, a fluctuation came from the surrounding space. A new gate opened, and an elder walked out. When Long Chun saw that elder's robes, he almost wept tears of joy. This old fellow really had come at the right time. Old fellow, I'm going to borrow your gate. Many thanks. That elder had just entered the netherworld and didn't even know what was going on when he was grabbed by Long Chun and thrown into the distance. At the same time, Long Chun charged into his gate. Long Chun. The elder was wearing robes of the corrupt path. He only recognized Long Chun once he was tossed aside. He had just recognized Long Chun when he was blown to pieces by the hand. The hand slammed into his gate, destroying it. However, Long Chun had vanished. The darkness was familiar. By the time the gate was destroyed, Long Chun had already escaped through it. Stimulating. Long Chun sighed with relief. That really had been dangerous at the end. He had almost made a big mistake. That huge hand had been a manifestation of the laws of the netherworld. Now that he had left, it would also vanish. The old man's gate would be fine. Long Chun, do you remember how you escaped from purgatory at the end? Asked Evil Moon suddenly. You know what, I really can't remember. I was caught by the chains when trying to take the purgatory evil dragon corpse. I remember struggling and not being able to escape the chains. And then my head's blank. My next memory is appearing outside the gates of hell. What happened in the middle? Asked Long Chen. Hello? Why aren't you saying anything? Asked Long Chen when Evil Moon didn't reply. Evil Moon was silent for a long time. Eventually it said, It's nothing. You managed to forcibly escape from purgatory. It makes sense that purgatory would erase those memories. The only strange thing is that it only erased a portion of your memories. Curious. In the end, Evil Moon decided to conceal what had happened to Long Chen in the end. It had sensed something, and after considering it, it decided that Long Chen shouldn't learn of this. That makes sense. Anyone who returns from the netherworld has their memories erased. But I didn't go through the gates of hell, so I only had a portion erased. It seems the netherworld really is strange. Long Chen nodded. The majority of nether passage experts were not as amazing as Chu Jianying. Chu Jianying had managed to seal a portion of her memories and bring them out. But the majority of nether passage experts had all their memories erased by some mysterious energy. It was said that the netherworld existed on a yin plane, while the world of the living existed on a yang plane, which meant that memories of the other plane had to be erased. However, this was just a guess, and it was just what everyone said. There was no solid proof of the matter. Long Chen, have you ever felt yourself to be evil or very sinister? Asked Evil Moon suddenly. What? Did you take the wrong medicine this morning? Aren't you an evil weapon that has slaughtered countless people? Don't you feel embarrassed calling me evil? Long Chen was speechless. All right, let's not talk about that then. Evil Moon shut its mouth. It felt that its own communication abilities were lacking. It couldn't pull any useful information out of Long Chen without him sensing something. Evil Moon, why are you acting strange? Asked Long Chen curiously. It's nothing. I'm going to absorb the purgatory evil dragon's soul essence. I won't be able to help you during this time, so try to act calm. After that, Evil Moon fell silent. Long Chen clearly felt that Evil Moon's words were a bit strange and off from how it usually acted. He was about to ask it for more details when his body shook. Long Chen opened his eyes. He found himself to be in a sealed-off room. At this moment, he was a white-haired skinny elder. The moment the Netherworld's laws had been about to kill him, an expert from the corrupt path had attacked the Nether Passage realm. Long Chen had instantly recognized his robes. At that moment, he had been so moved that he had almost cried. This was his first time feeling that the corrupt path's experts also had a lovable side to them. Now that Long Chen had gone through the expert's gate, he had entered his body. That expert's Yuan spirit had been destroyed, and this body had become a masterless object, allowing Long Chen to control it. Long Chen opened the door. The sight that entered his eyes was a naked man and woman sweating and plowing the fields. Both the man and woman were Lifestar experts. In the midst of their plowing, they saw Long Chen walk in. They immediately knelt on the ground, quivering with terror. The woman was especially terrified. Greetings, Patriarch. Long Chen directly pressed a finger against the man's head. A lightning arrow pierced his head, killing him. A rush of information poured through his mind. Long Chen learned that the owner of the body he was in was called Zhao Manchu. He was the old patriarch of the evil spirit sect, while the man he had just killed was the evil spirit sect's new sect leader. As for the woman, that was a bit interesting. She was Zhao Manchu's disciple and his dual cultivation cauldron. However, just the third day after he went into seclusion to attack the Nether Passage realm, she had ended up with the new sect leader. Experts attacking the Nether Passage realm would take at least 3 months to succeed. Some would even take years. The two of them had never expected their old patriarch to return so quickly. Things are a bit messed up now. Long Chen clapped himself on the forehead. He hadn't expected this old ghost to still have such firepower at such an age. However, the old patriarch didn't know that someone else had already given him a green hat. Patriarch, don't kill me. Please, think of the years I've attended you. Long Chen pointed another finger, killing her. If you knew life was so precious, why did you take other people's lives so easily? Sighed Long Chen. If they weren't from the corrupt path, he wouldn't have killed them. Whether or not they wanted to give a green hat to this old ghost had nothing to do with him. However, the corrupt path's hands were covered in the blood of the righteous path. If it was just the blood of the righteous path, he wouldn't care that much. After all, the righteous path didn't have many good people either. However, the corrupt path's first step on their cultivation paths was to kill the innocent commoners and use their blood as proof of their conviction toward their corrupt god. That was something Long Chun couldn't accept, so he didn't feel any guilt about killing them. Long Chun entered a larger palace from his room. Sitting on the throne, he shouted, "All core elders are to come for an emergency meeting." The entire evil spirit sect was shaken. None of its members could understand how their old patriarch had come out so quickly from his seclusion. "Greetings, patriarch." In just a bit, over 70 core elders gathered. Of these people, half were lifestar experts. This evil spirit sect had to be very powerful. "Two of you go and drag out those two brutes inside," ordered Long Chun coldly. All the elders' expressions were odd. Two of them entered the back of the palace and came out with two corpses. Everyone became shocked, but no one said a word. "Let me tell you, I'm in a bad mood, a very bad mood," said Long Chun gloomily. The elders were silent out of fear. If such a thing happened to anyone, they would also be in a bad mood. They just prayed that the patriarch's anger wouldn't fall on them. "Tell me, what had happened during the time I was in seclusion?" demanded Long Chun. Reporting to the old patriarch, an emissary from Pill Valley came yesterday to discuss something with the sect leader. "He has yet to leave," reported an elder. In truth, Long Chun already knew about this from soul-searching the new sect leader. He was asking on purpose as a cover. After the battle in the Grand Han, Chu Jianying had released the experts from the corrupt path so that they could bring word to the higher-ups of the corrupt path to not be used by Pill Valley. Ever since then, the corrupt path had become much calmer. The corrupt path wasn't led by fools. After being used for so long and suffering such losses, they hadn't gained anything. Pill Valley itself hadn't been bringing out its real power and only using others. In the end, they had retreated like turtles into their shells. That had made the corrupt path very dissatisfied with Pill Valley. That was why the various large forces of the corrupt path had no desire to work with Pill Valley again. Their cooperation had caused the corrupt path to suffer large losses. Before, those losses were secretly paid back with medicinal pills from Pill Valley. However, ever since the matter of Master Longsan, their medicinal pill supply had also become tight. As a result, the corrupt path didn't wish to work with them any longer. However, Pill Valley really had some skills. They had taken advantage of when Zhao Manchu was attacking the Nether Passage realm to seduce the new sect leader. "Bring him over," shouted Long Chun. Very quickly, an elder wearing Pill Valley's robes walked in. When Long Chun saw him, he narrowed his eyes slightly. The thing he couldn't comprehend was that he recognized this elder. He was one of Pill Valley's grand elders. However, he belonged to the conservative faction. Wasn't the conservative faction supposed to focus on calmly developing and not interfering with the outside world? However, he had actually run over to form a relationship with the evil spirit sect. "Greetings, sect leader Zhao." The Pill Valley elder cupped his fists toward Long Chun with a faint smile. He seemed very relaxed. Long Chun smiled coldly. "What's with that smile? Are you prostituting yourself? Someone come beat him. Beat him until he's dead." When Long Chun gave his orders, no one could believe their ears. They looked at their patriarch in shock. Had he gone mad? He wanted to kill one of Pill Valley's grand elders? "You! What are you doing?" shouted the grand elder. "I've already said that I'm not in a good mood. Anyone who dares to go against my orders will be executed. You all can choose who you'd rather die, him or you," roared Long Chun. "Die!" Those elders hesitated no longer and attacked Pill Valley's grand elder. "You've gone mad!" The grand elder roared, and flames exploded out of him. However, there were too many people here. After blocking one attack, he fled outside the palace. "Activate the grand formation. Don't let him run," shouted an elder. The grand protective formation was instantly activated, and Pill Valley's grand elder suddenly turned into a turtle in a jar. He was besieged by over 30 life-star experts. Refreshing, truly refreshing. The feeling of playing people to death was truly good. Long Chun watched as the sanctimonious Grand Elder was forced to run miserably. It was a brilliant sight. Whoever kills him will become the new sect leader. Seeing that things weren't lively enough, Long Chun added some extra spice. Long Chun now had the title of the old patriarch of the evil spirit sect. Looking through the memories of the sect leader he had just slain, Long Chun couldn't help but sigh. This Zhao Manquin was really unlucky. Just as his longevity was running out, he had managed to comprehend life and death, reaching half-step nether passage. After a year of preparing himself, he had made his determination to attack the nether passage realm. However, he had only just stepped into the netherworld when he was killed by Long Chun, and his body was taken over by Long Chen's Yuan spirit. However, this was not technically a possession since he was unable to use Zhao Manquin's energy. He was only able to use his own energy within this body. He couldn't activate the corrupt path's techniques. Possession required a long time to stabilize, and doing so would cause his Yuan spirit to adapt to this body. Then when he returned to his real body, it would feel unnatural. Although possessing Zhao Manquin's body would allow Long Chun to use this old fellow's status to do many things. For example, personally taking a trip to Pill Valley, the ancient races, the ancient family alliance, the Shen beasts, making some money, killing some people, and venting some rage, it wasn't worth it in the long run. That was why Long Chun was just controlling the physical body. If a real fight started, he would be exposed. However, even if he couldn't personally fight, just this husk was enough for him to do many things. For example, getting this Grand Elder of Pill Valley killed. When Long Chun said that whoever killed him would become the new sect leader, all those Life-Star experts' eyes turned red. Although that Grand Elder was powerful and surrounded by intense flames, he was an alchemist, not a flame cultivator. In just a few seconds, he was surrounded by danger on all sides. Zhao Manquin, you've gone insane. Do you know the consequences for this? Roared the Grand Elder. He was unable to comprehend why the evil spirit sect's old patriarch would act like this. Fool, you bewitched my disciple while I was attacking the Nether Passage realm, wanting to completely overturn my evil spirit sect. If I don't give your Pill Valley a harsh lesson, won't you start thinking that the entire corrupt path is your dog? All of you start using some real power. You're all cowards. Even now, you don't dare to kill him? You useless things. If you don't start fighting seriously, you'll regret it, shouted Long Chun furiously. He had noticed that although these corrupt experts looked to be fighting fiercely, they were all holding back. They clearly wanted to capture the Pill Valley Grand Elder alive rather than kill him. After all, a Grand Elder was an extremely important position in Pill Valley. They were afraid. However, following Long Chen's shout, these people clenched their teeth. One of them raised his blade, and blood-colored light exploded out of it, transforming into countless skulls that attacked the Grand Elder. That Grand Elder raised flame barriers, but the skulls blasted large holes through them. As his defenses were torn apart, the other corrupt experts didn't hesitate. They attacked. At this moment, it revealed how vicious the corrupt path's experts were. With his defenses broken, the others all launched their strongest killing blows. The Grand Elder was instantly annihilated in body and soul. Good. Person must be firm and decisive. If you hesitate over everything, what accomplishments could you possibly have? If you always wait to see what other people are doing before you act, you won't even be able to grab crap while it's still warm. You're the next sect leader. Long Chun pointed at the corrupt elder who had attacked at full power first. That elder was delighted and hastily fell to his knees and kowtowed. The other elders were holding parts of the Grand Elder's corpse. The one holding his head couldn't help being disappointed. He had thought that he would be the next sect leader. Humph, you don't like it? A sect leader must have further vision and daring. Without that daring, what could you possibly accomplish? The opportunity was right in front of you, but you let it slip away for nothing. Tell me, how could I possibly give the sect to you? Long Chun looked at the elders with disappointment. Patriarch's teachings are correct. Those elders hastily bowed. His words were correct. All of them had hesitated. It was just that one of them had been one step faster than the others. As a result, that one step had resulted in him becoming the sect leader. His status was instantly elevated far above them. Everyone, return to the palace. Long Chun slowly walked back in with his hands clasped behind his back and sat on the throne. The gates were closed tightly, and a formation was activated to turn this into a restricted space. No one else could get close. The elder that was the future sect leader respectfully stood by Long Chen's side. That was a sign of his new status. When Long Chun wasn't present, everyone would have to listen to him. Although he wanted to conceal it and act low-key, he couldn't conceal his excitement. Just now, he had been standing with the rest. Now he was standing beside the patriarch. To say the others weren't jealous would be a lie. However, what could they do? Don't blame your patriarch for not giving you a chance. You all had this opportunity, but you hesitated, letting one person grasp it. Now I'll give you another chance. As long as you can grab hold of it, although you won't be able to be promoted to sect leader, I guarantee you can easily comprehend life and death when you reach the peak of the Life-Star realm. I will easily promote you to half-step nether passage, said Long Chun. What? All the elders were shocked. How could it be so easy to go from the peak of Life-Star to half-step nether passage? Perhaps you don't believe me? It's true, in the rest of the world, there's no one else who can do this. However, I can. Long Chun waved his hand, and a thick black chain appeared. All the elders let out startled cries and retreated as it thudded into the ground. They didn't sense any pressure from the chain, but they did sense a powerful aura of death that made them instinctively distance themselves from it. It was like being too close would cause their life force to rot. This is... All the elders were stunned. Some of them were old monsters that had lived for hundreds or thousands of years, but even people as experienced as them couldn't recognize what material this chain was made of. This chain is a priceless treasure I obtained from the netherworld. As long as your cultivation base reaches the peak of Life-Star, you can understand the true essence of death by binding yourself with these chains. You'll be able to experience the process of going from living to dead, from dead to living. After a few times, you'll come to naturally understand life and death, said Long Chen. You really are a conner. If they bound themselves with these chains, well, I believe the part about experiencing going from living to dead. But the dead to living part? Absolute nonsense. Just as Long Chun was conning these people, Evil Moon couldn't help opening its mouth. This chain was the weapon of one of the Skinners from Purgatory. The death energy coming from it would guarantee that anyone who touched it would die. Now you want to talk? Didn't you say you were going into seclusion? Raged Long Chun. By going into seclusion, I meant I am busy absorbing energy and can't help you fight. It doesn't mean I have to keep my mouth shut, said Evil Moon indifferently. Humph. Long Chin ignored it. He was holding the chains in his hands, as this body was already dead. While his Yuan spirit wasn't afraid of it. He continued, this chain comes from the netherworld and can allow one to experience the cycle of life and death. However, don't start dreaming too early. The chain only guarantees that you can comprehend life and death. As for surviving the netherworld, it'll be up to your luck. As for me, have you all not noticed that the fluctuations of my Yuan spirit are completely different from before? Could it be? Patriarch, you've already become a nether passage expert? The elders cried out in shock. Ha ha ha. Long Chen didn't reply and laughed instead. As for what that meant, he left it up to them. This mysterious laughter shocked these elders, as well as delighted them. Ignoring the nether passage realm, just the half-step nether passage realm was something countless Life-Star experts wouldn't dare to achieve even in their dreams. So, let me tell you, in the future, Pill Valley will just be a fart. With this chain, in less than 100 years, our evil spirit sect can give rise to over 100 nether passage experts. Half-step nether passage experts will number in the thousands. At that time, we'll unite the corrupt path and topple the righteous path. The martial heaven continent will be ours. As for Pill Valley, who gives a damn? Long Chen's words shocked and delighted these elders, as well as inspired them. This fortune had truly come suddenly. However, there is only one chain, and it is to be our evil spirit sect's secret treasure. No one is to spread a word of it past these walls, otherwise. Long Chen's expression suddenly turned cold. Patriarch, don't worry. We will add these memories to the corrupt god's seal so that no one can learn of it, cried an elder. Good. You're quite smart. Then let's discuss the plan for dominating the martial heaven continent within 100 years. The majority of you are at the Life-Star realm, and as long as you have enough resources you can quickly reach half-step nether passage. However, I don't want just you to advance. I want everyone to advance collectively and continuously over time. To do that requires one thing, money, and a lot of it at that. That's why all of you must listen well. Our evil spirit sect needs money, so all of you are to go borrow money from all the various sects using the name of the evil spirit sect. It doesn't matter how high the interest rate is. The only thing that matters is how much money you can get. Even if they want our divine item as collateral, even if they want a personal IOU from me, that's all fine. This is called borrowing chickens to get eggs. We will use their money to raise our power, and in 100 years the martial heaven continent will be ours. At that time, would we still even need to repay that money? The most important thing now is to gather as much money as possible, but remember not to expose the matter of the netherworld chain to anyone. I will decide what order you get to advance to half-step nether passage based on how much money you can get. Of course, the first one will be the new sect leader, but the rest of the rankings are up to you all. I should also tell you that the more you contribute and the more money you gather, the greater your position will be in the future. You've already missed one chance, so if you miss this second chance, no one will be able to help you. Go! Long Chun waved his hand, and those elders instantly vanished from sight as they flew out of the palace. Long Chun, you really are shameless. I, Evil Moon, have never seen someone like you in all my years, sighed Evil Moon emotionally. The facts proved that people's potential was really limitless. As long as you could give someone a target that was easily obtained, they would unleash unimaginable power. It was unknown whether it was due to the identity of the patriarch, or whether it was because Long Chen's conning skills were simply so great, or perhaps it was a combination of both. But these elders who had lost their chance to become the new sect leader all went crazy fighting for this chance. None of them wanted to give up a second chance. After returning to their homes and gathering their things, they rushed off to sects that they had a decent relationship with. As elders of a sect, they all had their circle of friends. Some of these elders were friends with elders from other sections. Some were even close enough to certain sect leaders to call them brother. After all, the evil spirit sect was quite famous within the Eastern Xian region's corrupt path. Back when Long Chun had charged into the corrupt path's minor worlds to take their heaven and earth spirit spring, the evil spirit sect had contributed greatly to the force that had managed to drive him away. Those elders immediately went to the sects that they had the closest relationships with and directly asked to borrow money. They were afraid others would take the initiative first. In any case, the patriarch had already said that the evil spirit sect would be filled with nether passage experts in just 100 years. No matter how much they borrowed, they didn't need to worry about it. Even an insane interest rate was no problem. In any case, they were borrowing the money under the name of the evil spirit sect, with the backing of their patriarch. As a result, practically all the Eastern Xian region's corrupt path sects ended up visited by at least one elder of the evil spirit sect. Countless sects loaned money to them. One reason was because the evil spirit sect was a top-level sect, and they hoped to form a good relationship with them. Other than that, the evil spirit sect promised to repay them with extremely high interest. They promised to double their investment in 100 years. Not only could they form a good relationship with the evil spirit sect, but they could also gain so much profit. Where would one even look for such a great thing? Moreover, the evil spirit sect's elders conducted their money borrowing in absolute secrecy. They demanded whoever they borrowed money from to keep it secret as well. They were not to divulge a single word of what was happening. Long Chun was sitting in the evil spirit sect, with a large list hanging inside the palace. The list ranked the various elders' contributions. However much money they had gathered was listed beside their names. Yes, it was fair, very fair. Those elders seemed to have become insane as they borrowed as much money as possible, using any means necessary, from threats to promises, all to increase their own ranking. Some elders even went to rob their close relatives and friends, while they also brought out all their own savings. Long Chun sat there, spending each day counting money. He waited for the elders to come by, kneel toward him, and offer him a spatial ring. Each time, Long Chun would accept it without his face turning red at all. At the same time, he would encourage them to work harder, even saying that there was no need to be so rigid in their methods. The method by which they obtained the money didn't matter. What mattered were the results, not the process. When Long Chun said this, Evil Moon became speechless. "Are you telling them to steal and plunder?" Long Chun shook his head. "That's their own problem. I've given them a kitchen knife, but as for what kind of food they make, it has nothing to do with me." You gave them a knife and then pointed them to other people's heads. What kind of food are you expecting? Humph. The only food you're getting is pig heads. A master can open the gates, but cultivation depends on the person. The Tao is limitless and depends on each person's comprehension. Take me for example. I'm unlucky, and I have to fight for everything I get. However, I'm luckier than them, in that although I come from poor origins, I have a warm mother and a heroic father. They didn't try to brainwash me. They gave me a blank sheet and let me paint what I wanted. As for these people, there's already no saving them. They've been brainwashed by their so-called corrupt God. They don't even have their own thoughts. Not conning them would be letting down their years of brainwashing. I should tell you, the corrupt paths fellows are all very perseverant. They're vicious to others and vicious to themselves. That's why you should just watch. A shocking amount of money is about to come in. As Long Chun predicted, on just the second day he received his first receipts. There were 10 million spirit crystals, but it was just a start. The first elder who came to give him a spatial ring immediately rushed off after handing him the money. By the third and fourth days, Long Chun was barely keeping up with recording how much they had earned. He was making so much that he was almost tired of recording it all. As Long Chun kept track of the money, the new sect leader kept track of the rankings. By the seventh day, Long Chun had taken in 480 million spirit crystals. Fuck! I didn't expect that the corrupt path to be so rich. Long Chun was shocked inside, but he didn't show it. He simply continued increasing the pressure on the elders, saying that they could use the sect's divine item as collateral. If the other side didn't believe it, they could come to the evil spirit sect and he would personally speak with them. Once Long Chun threw that into the mix, there were dozens of new loans approved, and his wealth leaped to 930 million spirit crystals. After another 3 days, Long Chun found that this was about the limit. The evil spirit sect's movements had not gone unnoticed. Although they had carried everything out secretly, there was no way such large movements could be made without raising suspicion. Long Chun was sure that it wouldn't be long before people would come to investigate. At this time, Long Chun made the wisest decision. On a moonless, stormy night, he patted his butt and left. The disappearance of their patriarch went unnoticed for 3 days before all the evil spirit sect's experts were thrown into a panic. It was just at that time that the corrupt path's higher-ups from the Central Shen region came to investigate. Clearly the evil spirit sect's movements had been reported by others. This investigation revealed that the patriarch had vanished. As for the story Long Chun had come up with about creating countless half-step nether passage experts, it was also exposed. The entire Eastern Shen region's corrupt path went crazy. Only at this time did they realize that they had been tricked. Practically all the corrupt sects in the Eastern Shen region had loaned money to the evil spirit sect. When the Central Shen region's experts came to investigate, they were stunned to find that all this money had been whisked away by the patriarch. Many people were now holding IOUs in their hands and had no idea who they were supposed to find to get the money. All the evil spirit sect's money had vanished as well. The entire corrupt path was enraged. Ever since the corrupt path had been established, they had never encountered such a thing. The higher-ups were infuriated and went all out to find Zhao Mongkuan. Unfortunately for them, Long Chun had long since disguised Zhao Mongkuan's body and headed off to the heaven-splitting battle sect. When he was close to the heaven-splitting battle sect, he took out his Yuan spirit and burned Zhao Mongkuan's body to ashes with the heaven-incinerating flame. He left behind no traces. Later, The Corrupt Path's higher-ups asked Heavenly Fate Island to calculate the fate of Zhao Mankuan, only to find that he had long since died. After a careful analysis, they found that he had been dead even before he had come out of seclusion. The Corrupt Path was shocked. No matter how amazing Heavenly Fate Island was, they could only read the fates of living people. Dead people, especially matters relating to the netherworld, couldn't possibly be calculated. In the end, this matter was added to the ranks of the 4 mysteries of the Corrupt Path. Even countless years later, no one managed to figure this mystery out. However, due to the Patriarch, one of Pill Valley's Grand Elders had been killed. As for how Pill Valley and the Corrupt Path settled that bill, only they knew. Long Chun took a deep breath and slowly opened his eyes. The old man was sitting calmly in front of him. Their palms were still pressing against each other. The old man's eyes were still closed, and his aura had vanished. It was like he had died. "Old man, you have to come back." Long Chun made a prayer inside. The netherworld was truly dangerous. The slightest mistake would cause someone to lose their life. Long Chun carefully retreated from this place. This was a private room, and the heaven-splitting blade was protecting it. There was even a formation outside isolating it. This was the safest place in the heaven-splitting battle sect. Long Chun exited. The bosses were guarding the entrance and immediately began to ask him what had happened. "Little fellow, what happened? How did your Yuan spirit come from outside?" Long Chen's movement arts might be able to conceal his Yuan spirit from the regular disciples. But there was no way he could have snuck into this room with the 7 bosses guarding it. Long Chun hadn't explained at that time and had entered to return to his body before saying anything. Now that he came out, the 7 bosses crowded him. The matter of Long Chun entering the netherworld was only known by them. Not even Bao Buping and Chong Hao were told. It wasn't that they didn't trust them, but that the 2 of them were still young. They weren't experienced enough, and who knew what would accidentally come out of their mouths. Everything went smoothly. Long Chun didn't dare to tell them everything. All he said was that he and the old man had gone through everything up to the gates of hell smoothly. On the way back, he had encountered someone from the Corrupt Path called Zhao Mankuan, slain him, and then entered his body through his gate. He gave a simple explanation of what he had done in the Corrupt Path to con money. Whenever he wanted to mention what exactly happened in Purgatory, Long Chun felt a faint sense of unease, so he didn't mention it in the end. This kind of unease didn't stem from himself, it was unease for the 7 bosses. He now realized at least one restriction binding him, the existence known as karma. If he told them about everything, it would very likely harm them. Ha ha ha. "Little fellow, you have some talent. The Corrupt Path really has been conned." The 7 bosses cried tears of laughter when they heard about how Long Chun had conned the Corrupt Path. It was definitely satisfying. Perhaps only someone like Long Chun would think of such a con. "This is even better than hacking them with a blade," praised the 4th boss. Although Long Chen's con wouldn't cause the Eastern Shen region's Corrupt Path to collapse, it could count as at least giving them a serious blow. The new disciples would definitely end up falling far behind the others. Money really was the most frightening thing. The Shen Dao sect needs money to rebuild. "I had no choice." Long Chun laughed mischievously. "Don't let it get to your head. Hurry and go back. You've been in seclusion for 2 months. The day before yesterday, I heard that the Shen Dao sect's construction already came to a stop. They probably ran out of money," said Boss Bao. "All right, then I'll leave for now." Long Chun said his goodbyes to the bosses. Without saying goodbye to Chong Hao or Bao Buping, he began rushing over to the Shen Dao sect. Only now did Long Chun learn that it had been 2 months in the outer world since he had entered the netherworld. By the time he returned to the Shen Dao sect, the basic shapes of the buildings had come into being. Many majestic mountains were already supported by formations. Although they were still barren, things were starting to take shape. However, when he returned, he only saw a portion of experts still working. The construction in many places had stalled. "Long Chun, this goal of yours really is too big." Li Tianxian looked at Long Chun with a complicated expression. As the Shen master, reconstructing the Shen Dao sect was his responsibility. However, Long Chen's plans for the reconstruction were too grand. Only once the construction began did they realize that the cost would be even greater than what they had estimated. There was not one area that didn't need more money. Just laying down this basic foundation and finishing the cultivation and training areas for disciples had taken up as much money as the savings of any supreme sect. Finishing the training grounds could temporarily steady the hearts of the new disciples. Although they were geniuses amongst geniuses, if their treatment in the Shantian Dao sect was so bad that they couldn't even train, their morale would drop. Then reconstructing would be even more difficult. The first thing they had done was to build the training grounds and lay the basic framework for the rest. Although some parts looked grand already, they were empty inside. The true money-burning areas involved the grand formation. Just building what was essentially an empty shell had used up all the money Long Chun had ripped off of Pill Valley and the money he had borrowed from Zhang Wenlong. The Shantian Dao sect's original savings had also been tossed into the construction. However, they weren't even halfway done. In fact, Li Tianxian estimated that they were only 30% of the way through. That was why he said that Long Chen's goal was too big. Worst of all, even Li Tianxian, the leader of the sect, couldn't do anything about it. He could only hope for Long Chen to make more money. That was truly embarrassing. In my view, any problems that can be solved with money aren't real problems. Long Chen handed Li Tianxian a spatial ring. How do you have this much? Li Tianxian gasped. Long Chen didn't hide what he had done. He told Li Tianxian about how he had gone to the netherworld with the old man and then ended up causing a bit of trouble in the corrupt path. He concealed certain portions just like he had with the 7 bosses. You actually went to the netherworld? Long Chen explained the situation outside the netherworld's gates of hell. He didn't feel any sense of unease when speaking of those things, so he felt that there shouldn't be any karma. Little fellow, you really were vicious. Li Tianxian looked at the almost 1 billion spirit crystals in the spatial ring with admiration. Long Chen not only had heaven-shaking combat power, but his money-making abilities were also heaven-defying. Is Wild all right? Asked Long Chen. His body seems to have reached a full state. However, it seems it will still be some time until he wakes up. All right then. Xian Master, I'll leave the matter of reconstructing the sect to you. This money should be enough for now, and after a bit more time, Zhang Wenlong should be sending over more money. Although it still isn't enough, it should alleviate some of the urgency. Again, just leave the matter of money to me. I'm going to go see my brothers. Long Chen said goodbye to Li Tianxian and went to the mountain belonging to the Dragonblood Legion. All the other mountains were barren, and the formations supporting them hadn't been finished yet. However, the Dragonblood Legion's mountain was already flourishing with greenery. Dense spiritual qi circulated around it. There was clearly a powerful formation at work. The density of spiritual qi in the air could almost suffocate a mortal. This mountain was still called Crouching Dragon Mountain, and only the Dragonblood warriors could enter. This was a land belonging solely to them. The cultivation caves were all of the highest possible level, and there was an independent transportation formation that allowed them to go directly to the central plaza. This was the unique privilege bestowed solely to the Dragonblood Legion. Li Tianxuan's actions were very smart. This was an era where the strong were worshipped. Long Chen and the Dragonblood Legion were the symbols of the Shantian Dao sect. Li Tianxian made them into stars shining in the bright sky, existences others would have to look up to. He did this not to incite other people's jealousy, but to increase their worship for them. Long Chen and the Dragonblood Legion's rise was a legendary story. He had to maintain a mystical feeling around them to effectively keep the other disciples in high morale. Boss, you're back. As soon as Long Chen appeared on Crouching Dragon Mountain, a Dragonblood warrior let out a startled cry, and the rest of the warriors surged out of their various residences like a swarm of bees. Ha ha ha! Good job. You've all reached the mid-soul transformation realm. This speed really is shocking. Long Chen was truly shocked when he sensed their auras. The majority of the Dragonblood Legion had reached the 4th heaven stage of soul transformation. Gu Yang and the others had even reached the 5th heaven stage. As for Long Chen, he wasn't even at the 1st heaven stage. During this time, he hadn't had any time to cultivate, so his cultivation base had stagnated. Each of us has our own soul-nourishing formation in our caves. Even when we sleep, we continue to get stronger. How could we not be fast? Said Li Qi excitedly. They clearly felt very glorious with the special treatment the Shen Dao sect had given them. This was a symbol of their status. Soul transformation experts mainly cultivated the Yuan spirit. The main component of the Yuan spirit was spiritual strength, so soul-nourishing formations and pills were must-haves for them. Li Tianxian had built the best possible soul-nourishing formations for the Dragon Blood warriors. Even throughout the entire continent they were top level. That was the power of money. Even without soul-nourishing pills, just cultivating in their caves allowed them to progress rapidly. Of course, this kind of rapid pace would only occur at the start. Their speed had dropped after reaching the mid-stage, and by the late stage their pace would be much slower. "Are the new fellows still obedient?" asked Long Chun. "Everything's well. The majority are courteous, and even if they challenge us, they do it with the attitude of learning. Some thorns became obedient after a few beatings. As for the few who liked causing trouble, after a few bashings, they couldn't bear it anymore and left," said Guyang. There was an immense number of geniuses that had joined recently. Those geniuses had previously liked to look down on others. Some people who felt that they would be amazing existences in the Shen Dao sect, second only to Long Chun, realized that they were nothing here after a few beatings. They then decided to leave. Perhaps that was a case of rather being the head of a chicken than the tail of a bull. Being in the Shen Dao sect was truly a blow to arrogant geniuses. However, the absolute majority stayed. The cultivation conditions here were much better than where they had come from. Furthermore, they could exchange pointers with true experts. That allowed them to progress at the fastest speed. Furthermore, another important factor was the Shen Dao sect's potential. The scale at which it was being rebuilt was shocking. If the disciples had such excellent treatment while the sect was still being built, what about once it was finished? The people that left were viewed as fools by the ones who stayed. They were the typical short-sighted people. Shen Dao sect had the best training grounds, the best resources, and the best geniuses to exchange pointers with. What place could be better than here? That's good. In a new batch, there are always going to be a few arrogant and toxic people that need some wearing in. However, don't worry about it. Our Dragon Blood Legion isn't taking in new people, no matter how good their talent is. Right now, your first goal should be to work on your cultivation. Maintain that feeling of crisis and urgency. None of us have any idea when the next battle will start. We have to stay on guard, said Long Chun. Boss, is there anything for us to do? Some brothers are feeling bored lately after having their power rise and only being able to play around with a bunch of brats. How about you bring us for a stroll through the corrupt path? Asked Guyang suddenly. Long Chen's lip curled. Guoran, you little brat. Why are you making Guyang the villain? Before Guyang had spoken, Guoran had stood behind him and poked him several times. Although it was out of Long Chen's sight, Guoran's actions couldn't escape Long Chen's spiritual perception. Hee, boss. These words are hurtful. I had Guyang say it because other than you, he is the brightest, most dazzling existence in the Dragon Blood Legion. Only Guyang's brilliance can stand shoulder to shoulder with you, laughed Guoran. Everyone looked at Guyang's bright and shining head and laughed. Guyang awkwardly rubbed his bald head. However, he wasn't angered. His bald head was natural and it was his trademark. No one else had this kind of luster. This was his pride. Focus on cultivating. Did you think that just because there's no movement from Pill Valley, the ancient races, the corrupt path, the ancient family alliance, the righteous sects, the Bloodkill Hall, and the Shen beasts that they've let this go? Stop dreaming. Although I don't know what they're up to, it's obvious they're just waiting for a chance to eliminate us. The initiative is now in their hands. What we have to do now is work hard on cultivating and accumulate our own trump cards so that we aren't slaughtered when the time comes. Don't be deceived by how much stronger you've grown. Our enemies are getting stronger too. Furthermore, our enemies won't follow any rules. They'll use any means necessary as long as it means we die. We don't have that much time to waste on having fun. Go back and do what you have to do. Long Chun dismissed these battle fanatics, speechless. It seemed that they were in a rush to fight after having their power grow. If they didn't have a real fight, they wouldn't be able to focus. As for himself, he was going left and right, busy with all sorts of things. Just who was the real boss here? Have Chu Yao and the others returned? While everyone was scattering, Long Chun suddenly thought of something and grabbed Guoran. Guoran clapped his forehead. Aya, that's right. I almost forgot. Boss, Sister Chu Yao sent a letter asking you to go to the Skywood Divine Palace. There's a pageant going on there. What pageant? Long Chun was dumbfounded. You can see for yourself. This is the letter Sister Chu Yao sent. Guoran hastily handed a letter over. Long Chun opened it and saw Chu Yao's graceful handwriting. The general meaning was that the three of them were very happy in the Skywood Divine Palace, and they were accompanying Chu Yao's master and getting her cultivation pointers. Originally, they had planned on returning after a few days. But the Skywood Divine Palace's Jade Lake pageant was about to start. That pageant was a heaven-sent opportunity for soul cultivators. The three of them were planning on participating, and they also wanted Long Chun to come too. Chu Yao vaguely hinted that there was something inside that could change Tang Wanner's life. However, the Jade Lake pageant was something that would gather all the elites of the southern Xin region. Even soul cultivators from other regions would come. Chu Yao and Meng Qi alone didn't feel any guarantee in getting what Tang Wanner needed, so they hoped Long Chun could come too. This letter was written a month ago, but he had been in seclusion in the heaven-splitting battle sect. Although Guoran had personally taken a trip to the heaven-splitting battle sect to tell the 7 bosses to notify Long Chun about this as soon as he came out, the heaven-splitting battle sect's men really were coarse. Guoran's words had gone in one ear and out the other. There are still 3 days, so there's no rush, said Guoran. No rush my ass. Going to the southern Shen region means passing through the ancient battlefield. Ugh, I have to get going right now. When the Shen master asks where I went, you tell him. Long Chun directly set off for the transportation formation. Looking at Long Chen's departing back, Yu Zifeng shook his head. Boss is the busiest one in the Dragonblood Legion. He's so busy that he doesn't even have time to cultivate. We'll have to work hard so that we don't hold him back. At that time, he won't have to be so tired. Guoran, Gu Yang, Li Qi and Song Mingyuan nodded. Long Chun had done so much for the Dragonblood Legion. They had to work hard. Long Chen's flying boat sped through the air like lightning. He was at top speed. In the beginning, he could go through transportation formations to the border of the southern Shen region. However, there was no transportation formation through the barrier. He had to use a flying boat. While he sat in the flying boat, Long Chun finally had the time to look through his gains this time. There was a mass of chains. He counted over 8,000, while he had over 6,000 of the triangular blades. He hadn't come up with any concrete plans on how to use them, but since they came from purgatory, and based on the intense aura of death they emitted, they had to be useful. He had 3 blood essence stones containing terrifying blood essence energy. Compared to the all-devil monster's essence blood he had obtained back then, the blood essence stones contained many, many times the amount of energy. According to Xie Qianshan's hypothesis, the blood essence stones were probably condensed of the purest, refined essence blood of the experts that failed to pass through the 9 springs. A single blood essence stone might contain the merged essence blood of millions and millions of life forms. He had 6 blood soul stones as well, while he didn't have even 1 life spirit stone. Those had gone to Xie Qianshan while the rest had gone to him. The 6 blood soul stones should be formed in a similar way to the blood essence stones. However, 1 condensed essence blood, while the other condensed soul essence. Xie Qianshan had said that blood essence stones were priceless treasures and could be used to upgrade the Yuan spirit. That really did make them priceless treasures for Long Chun. He could use them to upgrade the Dragonblood warriors' Yuan spirits. Other than those, he had a lake of death spirit water. That was definitely a treasure for scheming against others. Who could block such a terrifying thing? However, the thing that excited him the most was a 3-inch black nail. If Long Chun didn't recognize its aura, he wouldn't believe that this little nail was the huge nail he had taken from the gates of hell. He didn't know if it was because he himself was small when he entered the netherworld, which made everything look big, or if the nail had suddenly shrunk once he had taken it. The 3-inch nail had 8 corners. The back of it wasn't large, but its front was incomparably sharp, sharper than the tip of a sword. On the surface, it looked like a normal nail. No fluctuations or aura were coming from it. Did it change after I brought it back? Why don't I sense the slightest energy from it? Long Chun was dumbfounded. He lightly touched it. His fingertip brushed over the tip of the nail ever so slightly, and Long Chun felt a burst of intense pain. The slightest, almost imperceptible, hole appeared in his finger. This seemingly unremarkable nail was so sharp that it easily pierced his body. It had to be known that his current physical body was so strong that even ancestral items would have great difficulty harming him. The thing that shocked him was that, in that instant, his whole body stiffened. He was unable to move at all. Not only was his body frozen, but even his soul had the same condition. Suddenly, a black light flashed, and a saber cut off Long Chen's finger. That finger had started to turn black. Blood covered his hand. Only once his finger was severed did Long Chen manage to let out a startled cry and regain his mobility. His face was pale. This time he really was frightened. This was the closest he had ever felt to death. His finger fell to the ground. It was pitch black like a lump of coal. That's a nail from the gates of hell. Something that separates the yin and yang planes. It's unknown how many resentful souls and death curses are contained within it. Your guts really are big to stab yourself with it while you're bored. Was it stimulating? Laughed Evil Moon. Long Chen's heart was thumping. That really had been terrifying. He had almost died. Fuck. It really was stimulating enough to die. Long Chun had to admit that nothing had ever been as stimulating as this. His finger quickly regrew as he circulated his life energy. He reached out to grab the nail that had fallen, but then he suddenly stopped, afraid to touch it as if it might bite him. As long as you don't touch the tip, you'll be fine. There's a mystical curse on it, but as long as it doesn't have contact with blood, it won't activate, said Evil Moon. Long Chin nodded and carefully made a wooden case, placing the nail inside it to avoid injuring himself accidentally. Experiencing something that stimulating once was enough. Looking over his gains, Long Chin smiled. The ancients really were wise. They were the ancestors of noble character and integrity. And I, Long Chun, am not at all inferior to them. What are you talking about? Asked Evil Moon. The ancients said that they would voluntarily go to hell. As for me, not only have I gone there, if I had another chance, I would go again. Long Chun patted his chest with a proud expression. TCH, they were talking about sacrificing themselves for others, while you're clearly just after the treasures in purgatory. Is there the slightest relationship between the two? Said Evil Moon disdainfully. The motivation and process aren't important. The important thing is, I'd be willing to go back to hell, said Long Chun. He looked over his treasures from purgatory with a pleased smile. That expression was one of a pleased petty little person in Evil Moon's eyes. The flying boat was speeding along when it suddenly began to shake intensely. Long Chun jumped in shock and immediately put away the nail. At some unknown time he had entered a storm region. Everything around him was dusky, and the roar of thunder came with flashes of lightning. I've reached the ancient battlefield. Long Chen's expression became solemn. He had reached the border between the eastern Xian region and the southern Xian region. This was home to one of the 7 danger zones, the ancient battlefield. However, the 7 danger zones had now become the 6 danger zones. One of them, the heaven-devouring forest, had vanished because of Long Chun. As for the ancient battlefield, it had many names. It was also called the battlefield of gods. In truth, there were many names for many existences on the martial heaven continent. For example, the heaven-splitting battle sect's original name was the heaven-splitting divine sect. That was because it was rumored that the heaven-splitting battle sect had been founded by a god, so it had the word divine in it. However, the era of gods and legends had already passed, and the heaven-splitting battle sect declined. No one called it the heaven-splitting divine sect any longer, so it became the heaven-splitting battle sect. This battlefield was the same. It had once been called the battlefield of gods, but later people had felt that calling it the ancient battlefield was easier to understand, as gods were too ephemeral. Damn! This lightning and storm is no natural manifestation. It's the result of laws clashing and breaking spacetime. Long Chun was stunned. He was now finally experiencing the ancient battlefield. He found that it was somewhat similar to the ancient battlefield in the spirit world. However, the clash of laws here was even more intense. Long Chun didn't even need to try and trace back to the origin to sense these terrifying laws. Long Chun continued through this region according to the path set on the map. He didn't dare to deviate even in the slightest. Any deviation could cause him to lose his life here. He saw countless illusions as he flew by. He saw meteorites pouring down in torrents, stars exploding, giants holding up the sky, a one-winged beast slicing through the starry sky. There were countless life forms fighting intensely. The images were all chaotic. Long Chun focused on controlling the flying boat and did his best not to be affected by the illusions. However, this was very difficult as these illusions were constantly trying to draw his attention. There were several times he almost went off track because of how shocking the scenes were. These definitely aren't illusions. Long Chun was sure that these scenes weren't simple illusions. They were reality. However, those realities came from the past. He sensed anger, despair, fear, and countless emotions within them. After a day, his flying boat finally passed through the ancient battlefield. Long Chun was covered in sweat. Felt like he had gone through a day of bitter fighting. He was exhausted. For others, they could have someone flying the boat while someone else gave directions, allowing them to not be so distracted by what they saw. However, Long Chun couldn't do that. After flying out of the ancient battlefield, he entered the southern Xian region. He soon saw an ancient transportation formation and flew there. After paying a considerable fee, he was sent directly to the Skywood Divine Palace. Buzz. The formation lit up, and the first thing Long Chun saw was a sea of people. "Excuse me, can you let me through? I'm trying to join the Skywood Divine Palace's Jade Lake pageant, and I'll be late if I'm held back." Long Chun tried to gently push his way through the crowd, but there were truly too many people. There was no way for him to squeeze his way in. It wasn't as if he could brute force his way through. "Brother, you don't have to push. Everyone's the same as you. We're all here for the Jade Lake pageant. There's an extraordinary amount of geniuses attending this time, but you don't need to worry about being late. Because there are so many people, they've extended the registration period. The Skywood Divine Palace has already sent down word that they guarantee everyone will have a chance to register," said a friendly soul transformation ahead of him. "Ah, is that so? Then I'm at ease. If I had known, I wouldn't have had to rush so quickly." Long Chun wiped off some sweat. When going from the eastern Xian region to the southern Xian region, few people would choose to cross the ancient battlefield. That was too dangerous. The majority of them went around through the martial heaven searing. Although the martial heaven searing was also dangerous, even when encountering the most terrifying sea demons, there was still some hope of escaping. In the ancient battlefield, the slightest slip-up could cost you your life. Long Chun looked around. There was a huge channel in front of the transportation formation. The entire path was packed full of people that stretched as far as he could see. What shocked Long Chun was that all these disciples that had come to register were soul transformation experts. Furthermore, the majority were women. This was Long Chun's first time seeing so many female cultivators gathered in one place. "Aya!" Long Chun was looking around when someone suddenly crashed into him. A woman's startled cry rang out. The transportation formation behind him had activated again, and someone new had come. As a result, this jam-packed crowd became even tighter. A woman ended up crashing into Long Chun out of control. Long Chun felt two soft feelings on his back. Long Chun turned back to see that the woman appeared to be in her late 20s. Her looks weren't bad. She hastily apologized. "Sorry, Aya." The force behind her was too great, and she ended up pushing up even tighter against Long Chun. Long Chun held his hands high in the air to express his innocence. The woman tried to steady herself, but more and more people were appearing in the back, and she ended up tightly stuck to Long Chun. Hopefully, Wanner isn't anywhere near. Otherwise, I won't be able to prove my innocence to her. Long Chun hastily looked in every direction. If Tang Wanner's jealous eyes saw his current state, he would be doomed. However, he quickly realized that there were quite a few women crying out. Some of them were glaring furiously at the men beside them. Clearly, those men's hands hadn't been innocent. Long Chun saw one man laugh awkwardly after being glared at by a woman. He waded through the crowd away from the woman. Long Chun saw that he had a new target now, a woman capable of causing huge waves. Did they come here just to take advantage? Long Chun saw quite a few men with infatuated expressions. He became speechless. Hi! Can you protect me a bit? I'm being squeezed. The woman pressing tightly against Long Chun's chest looked up at him helplessly. Only then did Long Chun start fighting back against the crowd, making some space for her. These people's physical bodies couldn't compare to his. If he wanted to, he could charge straight through the crowd. However, this was Chu Yao's sect. He couldn't cause trouble. Thank you. You really are a good person, said the woman with a red face. I'll have to thank you for saying that. Only a few people will call me a good person. Long Chun bitterly smiled. At least, in the Eastern Shen region, there was no one who would do so. Oh, you look a bit familiar? Have we met before? Asked the woman. Haha. I'm just so ordinary that I look similar to a lot of people. Can you tell me what's going on with this Jade Lake pageant? Why are there so many people? You don't even know this? Are you not from the Southern Shen region? That's right. I came over for tempering and suddenly heard something about the Jade Lake pageant. So I wanted to see what it was about. Then you'll probably be disappointed. There are 2 requirements to attend the Jade Lake pageant. One is that you must be a soul cultivator whose spiritual strength reaches a certain standard. The other is the vouching of your sect to guarantee your identity. There's quite a fee for attending, and that fee is normally paid by the sect. Without it, they won't let you in, said the woman apologetically. It's all right, I have my sect vouching for me, and I'm also a soul cultivator. Although I'm just a dabbler in that regard, it should be enough to pass. Since this was organized by the Skywood Divine Palace and it was Chu Yao who had invited him to come, he should definitely be able to attend. Otherwise, she wouldn't have told him to come. Long Chun was in the midst of speaking with her when he suddenly kicked someone away, shouting, "Are you blind? I'm a man. So what are you touching me for?" He had suddenly felt something strange and noticed an idiot behind him. He didn't know if this idiot didn't differentiate between men and women, or whether he had just made a mistake, but Long Chun directly kicked him away. His kick caused a disturbance. That perverted-looking man hastily covered his face and tried to escape attention. That bastard, he touched me before too. He didn't come to register, he's purely here to... In any case, beat him, cried a woman suddenly, also kicking him. Following that woman's shout, a dozen other women immediately came to beat him. The perverted man didn't even dare to retaliate. He could only cover his head as he fled. Humph, you're this ugly, and you want to randomly touch others? You're trying to antagonize us? Is that it? Shouted a mighty woman as she gave him a beating. The perverted man was quickly beaten black and blue. However, he didn't dare to make a sound as he received their fury. After seeing the perverted man being beaten, quite a few other men's expressions changed. Feeling a bit guilty, they became much more reserved. No one wanted to become the next target. There was a saying that a person's accomplishments were 3 parts destiny, 7 parts hard work, and 90 parts looks. This perverted man was a perfect example. Everyone else was fine, but only he was beaten so badly. He used himself to prove that, in the end, having a decent face was still very important. In the chaos, Long Chun took out a cloak and put on the hood, covering the majority of his face. Although this place was the Southern Shen region, his fame from the Eastern Shen region was too resounding. Just this first woman had felt him to be familiar. She had to have seen him in a photographic jade. Once the disturbance passed, the line slowly progressed. Long Chun no longer spoke and just silently followed the crowd. Out of the way! Just as Long Chun was listening to other people's conversations to see if he could learn anything more about the Jade Lake pageant, a cold shout rang out. Long Chun looked over to see a group of people slowly advancing. For people were opening a path, while two experts carried a palanquin. Everyone got out of the way, while those that didn't have time were forced back by the powerful auras of the four people. Long Chun was a bit surprised. The ones carrying the palanquin and opening a path were all rank 9 celestials with exceptional auras. To use experts on this level for such menial tasks showed how high the status of the person inside had to be. The palanquin was closed off with a curtain, and a terrifying pressure came from it. That pressure came not from within the palanquin but from the curtains. The curtains were created from the silk of an 11th rank magical beast, the Earth Heart Blood Silkworm. Each strand of it was a priceless treasure that could cut through king items. Rumor was that just 10 300-meter strands of its silk were as valuable as an ancestral item. All the curtains were made of that silk. Their price was unimaginable. There was not one part of the palanquin that wasn't a treasure. Even the poles carrying it were top-grade ancestral items. That's the palanquin of Han Feifei. She's the granddaughter of the Southern Xian region's ancient family alliance's branch master. Don't provoke her. She's extremely unreasonable and tyrannical. The woman who had spoken with Long Chun whispered to him. The ancient family alliance? The Southern Xian region's branch master? Was that so amazing? Long Chen's lip curled. In any case, the Eastern Xian region's branch master would quiver whenever he saw Long Chun. However, perhaps the Southern branch master would be different. He might be a nether passage expert. That could be why his granddaughter was so tyrannical as to view all the Southern Xian region's geniuses as nothing. Long Chun couldn't understand these heavenly geniuses who were born with a silver spoon in their mouths. Did people have to act high and mighty in order to feel like they had value? If they weren't high enough, did they have to trample other people's heads to prove that they were different from others? Long Chen shook his head. Although he felt a bit unnatural, he was past his competitive age. He retreated to the side. However, this path wasn't very large. This packed crowd could only make a 6-feet-wide path. The palanquin was making things even tighter. Long Chun looked at the experts opening the path with ridicule. He saw them looking arrogantly at the people they forced out of the way. Did it feel very glorious being the dogs of other people? Aya! Originally, everyone was standing out of their way properly, when a woman was pushed forward by the crowd. It was just a single step, but she turned pale. Scram! Although she immediately pulled back, one of the men opening the path raised a whip in his hand and swung it at her face. This man was a whip expert, and his movements were very skilled. His whip was like a living viper, which had countless barbs on it. Anyone struck would be in immense pain. There was also a special poison on it that would cause scars even if heavenly Tao energy was used. The woman turned pale as paper. There was nothing she could do. Blood splashed as a man used his own face to receive that whip for the woman. H! That man let out a miserable cry, causing everyone to jump. That whip had clearly been aimed at the woman. Why would that man suddenly act as the hero saving the beauty? Even if he wanted to be a hero saving a beauty, he wouldn't use his own face to receive it. However, when people saw that his throat was caught in someone else's hand, they couldn't help letting out startled cries. A cloaked man was holding him like he was a chicken. The former had used the latter's face to receive that whip. Even the whipper was startled. Naturally, this cloaked person was Long Chun. He coldly said, "Is it fun playing such a joke? Now you've experienced how it feels. So tell me, is it fun?" Who are you?" demanded that man. Previously, it had been this man who had smiled wickedly and pushed that woman forward just as the palanquin was approaching. That woman hadn't been expecting such a thing, and so she had been pushed out. Long Chun had seen it clearly. As a man, he wasn't opposed to pulling pranks. Who didn't have a bit of a petty side? However, a man had to take responsibility for his actions. Seeing this man push that woman to be beaten, while acting like he hadn't done anything, had sparked Long Chen's anger. So he had helped that man play the hero saving the beauty. Who I am isn't important. What's important is that as a man who stands while he pees, you have to bear the responsibility for your actions. If you harm someone, you have to help them bear the consequences. I knew you didn't have that courage, so I just helped you out. There's no need to thank me. Long Chun slowly released the man and patted him on the shoulder. When Long Chun said this, everyone immediately understood what had happened. They all glowered at the man, especially the women. If it weren't for the palanquin being present, they might have already charged forward and beaten him to death. Just wait! The man cried out some vicious words before covering his face and leaving. The woman who had almost been harmed thanked Long Chun, but Long Chun merely smiled and shook his head. You like meddling in other people's affairs? Scram! The expert with the whip was embarrassed at having his attack so easily blocked. Seeing the woman, who had been his original target, thank Long Chun, he was enraged and attacked Long Chun, eliciting startled cries. Long Chun caught his whip. His hand moved so fast that others couldn't even see it. The expert tried to pull back his whip, and the whip's runes lit up. It was a powerful ancestral item. However, no matter what he did, the whip was like a little snake caught in Long Chun's grasp. He couldn't pull it out. You should bless your luck. If the weather wasn't good today, you'd be a corpse. Scram! Long Chun shook his hand ever so slightly. That expert coughed up blood, while every inch of his whip exploded, its fragments scattering through the air. Bastard, you dash! Pow! The expert's furious roar was cut off when Long Chun slapped him across the face. His head caved in, and he flew into the distance. Long Chun's gaze was cold. Originally, his mood was good as he had come to see Chuyao. His mood was as sunny as the weather. Being in a crowd of so many people made him recall many things of a more mediocre time. However, there just had to be a fool who came to provoke him, ruining his good mood. If the weather wasn't good, or if his mood wasn't good, he'd have long since killed that idiot with the wave of a hand. Long Chun's actions startled everyone, and they backed up even further, looking at him in shock. Someone actually dared to attack Han Feifei's people? Just how tough was his backing? What is going on? A female voice came from within the palanquin. It sounded like its owner had just woken up. Reporting to the young lady, someone is blocking the path and causing trouble, reported one of the experts. Then hurry up and kill them. I want to see Brother Dexian already, said the woman. Yes. The experts immediately surrounded Long Chun. Brat, although you have some skill, you shouldn't have become enemies with my Han family. To be enemies with the Han family is to be enemies with the Southern Xian region's ancient family alliance. Before, you didn't know the young lady's status. But now that you do, it's too late. I'll give you to the count of 3. Kill yourself. Doing so has 2 benefits. You'll get to keep your corpse intact, and you won't bring disaster to your family. Ha 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 ha. Long Chun couldn't help but laugh. Even in all his time dominating the Eastern Xian region, he had never encountered someone so wildly arrogant to the point that it was laughable. It seems you don't know how to appreciate kindness. Fine, you can die then, said one of the experts furiously. All of them raised their weapons at Long Chun. Wait a sec. Long Chun waved his hand. Are you regretting it now? It's too late. I've never done anything I've regretted, so there's no need for you to worry about that. I was just saying to wait because I want to ask if we can switch locations. Killing you here wouldn't be too good, said Long Chun. After all, this was right beneath the Skywood Divine Palace, Chuyao's sect. Killing people here wasn't good. However, his killing intent had already been provoked. He definitely wouldn't be merciful once he attacked. The crowd was shocked. Just who was this cloaked man? Did he not know who Han Feifei was? He actually dared to go against her. Just as everyone was shocked, within the main palace of the Skywood Divine Palace, 4 women were drinking tea and looking at the scene on the wall. The 4 of them were Meng Qi, Chuyao, Tang Wan as well as a beautiful woman looking to be in her late 20s. Her hair was tied up in a high bun, and her bearing was natural and graceful. She was the Skywood Divine Palace's master. For Chuyao, she had sacrificed her youthful appearance. However, Chu Yao had then brought back the divine life elixir from the spirit world which had restored her beauty. Furthermore, she looked to be even younger and more beautiful. When the four of them were together, it looked as if they were sisters. If it wasn't for the difference in their cultivation bases, it would have been impossible to realize the truth. They had been chatting here the entire day. The palace master was extremely experienced, and she would discuss the Tao with them every day, benefiting the three of them greatly. They were gaining new insights and benefits with each passing day. However, the three of them had recently been growing anxious because Long Chen hadn't come even after all this time. When they had seen him appear, Tang Wanner had immediately leaped up. But after a moment of excitement, she gnashed her teeth. That scoundrel, who knows where he went all this time? He must be punished. Don't open a back door for him this time. Let him take the test with everyone else and fight for his own spot. That's no good. Long Chen isn't very good at minding his own business. If things get troublesome, it'll be hard to fix them, said Chu Yao with a laugh. Isn't this the Skywood Divine Palace? Would he dare to cause trouble here? Demanded Tang Wanner. This was Chu Yao's home. Long Chen definitely wouldn't dare to cause trouble here. I wasn't talking about that. You know how outstanding Long Chen is. There are so many women here, aren't you worried? Chu Yao winked at Tang Wanner profoundly. He wouldn't dare. Tang Wanner immediately raged, but her confidence flagged. In this world where experts were revered, a person like Long Chen has a fatal attraction for women. Furthermore, he also has that wild and fearless aspect to him. Long Chen is dangerous, and some women are very attracted to that. You want to toss him into a crowd of women? Isn't that like tossing honey into an ant's nest? Laughed Chu Yao. I refuse to believe he's so amazing, quibbled Tang Wanner. However, she had no choice but to admit that Chu Yao was right. Then Meng Qi, don't you think he should be punished? He ignored us for such a long time. Tang Wanner turned to Meng Qi for help. Meng Qi shook her head helplessly. She patted Tang Wanner on the head. You really are like a child. If Long Chen didn't get the message, that means he's very busy. If he received it and didn't come, it means he had something even more important to do. There's nothing to punish him over. Big sister, why do you always speak up for Long Chen? If you act like that, he'll become completely unbridled. There'll be no way to keep him in check, said Tang Wanner. Meng Qi was always gentle and kind, as well as good at understanding others. Oftentimes, when it came to Long Chen, she would do whatever he said. Are you treating him like a child? Laughed Meng Qi. All right, if you want, he can muddle his way in with the crowd. Actually, if you look at him, he's reserved himself quite a bit. He's quite low-key in the crowd. Look at these geniuses puffing out their chests trying to impress others. Long Chen's intentionally trying not to draw attention. Hee, it's you, Wanner, who's trying to cause trouble for him. Sister, you're laughing at me, cried Tang Wanner. Oh, Palace Master, quick. Someone has to stop Long Chen. He's going to start killing. Meng Qi suddenly let out a startled cry. Humph, there's no need to go through so much trouble. You can die right here. Those experts sneered at Long Chen's expression, and their auras began to rise. Long Chen shook his head. Some people were in such a rush to reincarnate. If he didn't help them out, he'd feel bad for their energetic attitudes. Stop! Just as Long Chen was about to send these people to their deaths, a cold cry rang out. A figure appeared in the air. The one who had appeared was a young woman in emerald green robes. She was one of the Skywood Divine Palace's elders. As a wood cultivator, she gave off a gentle feeling. She was a life-star expert. Following her shout, those people stopped, glaring at Long Chen. Since everyone's a guest, why fight with your lives on the line? Young Lady Han, you have a violet golden invitation card and can enter without registering. There's no need to make things hard on others, said the elder while looking at the palanquin. I was sleeping and don't know what happened. Since you've come, I'll give you face. I can't be bothered to deal with him. Let's go. A woman's voice came from within the palanquin. She also didn't want to cause trouble as this was the Skywood Divine Palace's territory. Brat, count yourself lucky. Just wait. Don't let me learn who you are dash. Pow. One of the experts said some vicious words as they left, but before he could get them all out, he was sent flying by a slap from Long Chun. You're the lucky ones. Hurry up and scram. Since when did dogs start talking so much? Long Chun was irritated. Did these people really want him to kill them before they would be obedient? Arrogance. You are provoking me, raged the woman in the palanquin. Humph, a granddaughter of some branch alliance master isn't worth me provoking. Youngster, you overestimate yourself, said Long Chun disdainfully. The most irritating people were the ones like this, who provoked others whenever they opened their mouths, yet cried that others were provoking them when they spoke back. Idiotic. The fact that Long Chun said this showed that he knew exactly who he was speaking to, but he still treated her like this. That shocked everyone. If Long Chun really had such backing, why was he lined up with everyone? People of his level all got some special treatment. Ha ha ha. Good. Then you can be arrogant for now. Once the Jade Lake pageant starts, I'll make you kneel for mercy, laughed the woman in the palanquin. In all her years, this was her first time encountering someone who dared to take that tone with her. Long Chun shook his head. He couldn't be bothered to argue with a brainless princess. Their intelligence wasn't on the same level. Let's go. Following the woman's orders, the others continued carrying her on her way. They glared at Long Chun, but they didn't say anything again. They really had to have something broken in their heads. They clearly could have just flown over if they had such special treatment, but they had to force people out of their way. Was that the only way for them to feel superior in the southern Shen region? Long Chun was feeling more and more loathing toward that group. He couldn't understand what kind of mental illness they had. He supposed they were just lucky. If the Shen Dao sect was in the southern Shen region, he'd have long since helped cure them of their illness. Long Chun sighed inside. The eastern Shen region had been mostly cured. Did he have to be a traveling doctor in the other regions now? Once she left, the elder made an apology to everyone. She said that everyone should just calmly wait to register. As long as they met the standards, they would definitely be able to attend the Jade Lake pageant. She calmed the emotions of the crowd. Thank you. If it weren't for you, The woman who had almost been whipped finally had a chance to thank Long Chun. If it weren't for him, she'd have been struck in the face. That scar would have followed her for a lifetime. There's no need to be courteous. Actually, I'm not that good of a person. I just felt angry seeing certain people's actions, so I wanted to vent, said Long Chun. I should tell you this. You shouldn't attend the Jade Lake pageant. Although there are many opportunities during it, that Han Feifei isn't so easy to provoke. Furthermore, a genius from the Central Shen region is attending too, Dxin. Dxin is the son of the first wife of the master of the full ancient family alliance, Long. Not only does he have that special status, but he's also extremely terrifying. There has never been anyone who has managed to last longer than 3 exchanges against him. He's an unimaginably terrifying Empyrean. Here are a few travel expenses for you for coming this far, but please leave now so you aren't implicated, said the woman sincerely. She handed Long Chun a spatial ring. When he looked inside, he saw over 1,000 spirit crystals in it. For a rank 7 celestial like her, that was probably all her savings. Long Chun couldn't help smiling slightly, his heart warming. He never asked for others to pay him back for helping them, but he did rather care more about whether they appreciated it or not. If, on the other hand, after he had saved her, she had stealthily slipped away, acting like she didn't know about how she had implicated him, that would make him feel uncomfortable. Long? Why does that name sound familiar? Long Chun suddenly felt that this name was familiar. It seemed that it had been brought up before, but he hadn't been paying much attention at that time. Now that he heard this name again and learned of his status, it seemed his position and cultivation base were not any inferior to Chu Jianying. Thank you, but I have to attend the Jade Lake pageant. I can't leave. As for Dxin or Han Feifei, I'm very curious about just how much ability they have to be so arrogant. There's no need for you to worry about me. My life is quite tough. Long Chun smiled. Of course his life was very tough. He had even charged out of purgatory. As for a little Jade Lake pageant, insignificant. The woman couldn't help but sigh sadly. She didn't bother trying to advise Longchen any longer. The crowd continued onward. After half a day, they arrived in front of a huge gate. Some people were busy registering the participants and allowing them to enter. Longchen saw that everyone needed to show their identity plate and also get their spiritual fluctuations tested. They were confirming whether the participants met the standards of soul cultivators to enter the pageant. When it was Longchen's turn, the female disciple who received his identity plate only stared blankly. She looked up at him. "Sorry, you aren't from the southern Xian region." "What? Can't people from other regions also attend?" asked Longchen. This was different from what he had expected. If people from other regions weren't allowed to attend, then what had he rushed over here for? Wait, no, that Dexian isn't from the southern Xian region either. Why can he attend? Raged Longchen. Don't panic just yet. Geniuses from other regions can attend, but in order to show consideration to the people of this region, the test standards for them are increased by 100 times. "I hope you can understand," said the disciple politely. 100 times? All right, then test away. Longchen was confident he could pass. Quite a few people were shocked that Longchen came from a different region. There were very few disciples from other regions that had the power to attend the Jade Lake pageant. The test was something only a few strong soul cultivators could pass, and to have its difficulty increased by 100 times made it almost impossible. For natives, their soul value must reach 10,000 points to enter. As for you, you'll need to reach 1 million points at least. Dexian also had to take this test to enter, so we aren't being biased. "Of this you can be sure," said the disciple. "If he can pass, then I can too. Just test me." Longchen shrugged. As soon as he said this, someone laughed. "How shameless. Does he think he can compare to Dexian? Laughable. Dexian is a peerless heavenly genius. A little puppy can't compare to him." "Little people shouldn't say such big words," added another. Clearly, Dexian's fame was quite great, and there were quite a few supporters of his in the crowd. For Longchen to say that he could also pass had immediately caused quite a few disdainful snorts to ring out. Longchen ignored them. "How do I do the test?" "Normally, we just need to use the spirit testing stone, but it caps out at 20,000 points. You'll need to use the spirit testing tablet." The disciple waved her hand, and a 30-meter tablet appeared behind her. There was a red line carved onto it with red liquid flowing within. Along the line were several clear lines marked with numerical values written in immortal characters. When that tablet appeared, startled cries rang out. The very first mark is 100,000, while its maximum is 1,500,000. Is there really such an existence in this world? Didn't they already say that Dexian passed? Dexian practically isn't human. Hopefully, this guy won't fail to even reach the first marker, or it would be too embarrassing. Is he covering his face because he's afraid of embarrassing himself? At least he made his preparations first. Longchen had a hood on, blocking the upper half of his face. As for his identity plate, only the female disciple had seen his name there. The others had no idea who he was. They thought he was wearing a cloak to act mysterious. "Yower, are you sure that Longchen's spiritual strength can compare to Dexian's? If he embarrasses himself, it'll be difficult to let him in," said the Skywood Divine Palace's master within the main palace. "Palace master, don't worry. I understand Longchen's spiritual strength the most. Dexian had a soul value of 1,200,000. Longchen will definitely score higher," said Meng Qi confidently. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and Tang Wan'er had great confidence in Longchen. They knew just how monstrous his spiritual strength was. To start the test, place your hand on the spirit testing spot. "You can unleash your spiritual strength there," said the disciple. Longchen nodded and placed his hand on a red-colored square sensor stone. The countless mocking voices made him smile coldly. The spiritual strength in his mind-sea surged out. As Longchen's spiritual strength surged, the red liquid in the tablet began to fluctuate. However, even after several seconds, it didn't climb at all. Ha ha ha, he probably can't even reach 100,000. And he acted so big. How laughable. Didn't he compare himself to Defiant? I've never seen someone with such a thick skin. If I were him, I'd kill myself right now. Seeing that the red liquid didn't move, the sharp-tongued people immediately began to add on insults. Long Chun didn't say anything, but the disciple testing him coldly said, "The spirit testing tablet is different from the spirit testing stones. It doesn't finish the test instantly, which is why we don't use it normally. He needs to use his spiritual strength to make the soul blood liquid inside reach a boiling point before it can start rising. That usually requires half an incense stick's worth of time. So if you don't understand, don't randomly speak. You only reveal how ignorant you are." Those mocking people's expressions immediately became ugly. The surrounding people were all looking at them disdainfully. "Humph, so what? I don't believe such a person has a soul value of 1,000,000. He's clearly just wasting time," quibbled a man. "It's moving." Just at this moment, the red liquid representing his soul value began to rise. The disciple standing beside it was shocked. In just 5 breaths' time, Long Chun had made the soul blood liquid inside reach its boiling point. That was absolutely shocking. Even Defiant had used over 10 breaths' time to reach this point. This not only represented that his soul value was double Defiant's, but it also represented his terrifyingly powerful spiritual strength. Just at this moment, within the main palace, the palace master became shocked. "Long Chen's spiritual strength, is it even greater than yours, Meng Qi?" Meng Qi was a pure soul cultivator. In truth, her spiritual strength had mutated strangely and could no longer be classified according to normal standards. As for Chu Yao, she was the disciple that the palace master was fondest of, to such a point that the latter had been willing to sacrifice her longevity and beautiful appearance to make up for the fact that Chu Yao had missed her golden cultivation time. As a wood cultivator, Chu Yao had both plentiful spiritual yuan and spiritual strength that wouldn't lose out to her masters. When Meng Qi had arrived, the palace master had been shocked to find that Meng Qi's spiritual strength was even greater than Chu Yao's. That had already filled her with disbelief. As for Defiant, his spiritual strength hadn't surpassed Meng Qi's. He had only reached the same level as Chu Yao. In truth, Meng Qi's spiritual strength was the result of Long Chun cutting off a portion of his own spiritual strength, creating a spiritual seed for her. That was what had resulted in the mutation. Chu Yao's soul value had been measured at 1,370,000 points, while Defiant had reached 1,350,000 points. Could be said that he was equal with Chu Yao in this regard. However, Defiant had been holding back at that time, but in the same vein, Chu Yao had only measured her soul value a few months ago, and it had now increased by quite a bit. It was just that she hadn't tested it again. In any case, their spiritual strength should be on the same level. However, Meng Qi's soul value had reached 1,490,000 points. She was at the top of all of them. On the other hand, Tang Wan'er was left out. Her soul value was only 57,000 points. In the outside world, this was incredible, but compared to these monsters, she was clearly much inferior. When they had tested themselves, even Meng Qi hadn't expected Tang Wan'er's soul value to be so low. However, she was a very brute force kind of fighter, so it was understandable. Nevertheless, Tang Wan'er couldn't help feeling disappointed. Her emotions were always written all over her face. She felt inferior. Hence, they had called Long Chun over mainly for Tang Wan'er. They had to fight for one of the many opportunities in the Jade Lake pageant that would increase Tang Wan'er's spiritual strength. This was also why Tang Wan'er was so anxious when Long Chun arrived so late. She wanted to get back at him for it. Hearing the palace master's shocked cry, Meng Qi merely smiled. She looked at the scene on the wall. The red liquid was still rising. 200,000. 300,000. 400,000. As Long Chen's spiritual strength circulated, it continued to rise. The surrounding experts all stared in stunned silence. It had to be known that a normal cultivator at their level had a soul value under 3,000. After all, spiritual strength wasn't the only kind of energy used by a cultivator. In truth, when fighting, cultivators had to merge the essence, chi, and soul together. Those three things represented their physical strength, spiritual yuan, and spiritual strength, respectively. Those three types of energy had to merge together to unleash magical arts. Different magical arts required different proportions of energy. For the majority of battle skills unleashed with weapons or fists, the proportion was normally 4:5:1. In other words, 40% came from the physical body, 50% came from spiritual yuan, and 10% came from spiritual strength. There was also another aspect known as the body, mouth, and will. When unleashing one's greatest power, the body moved, the mouth made an incantation or shouted, and the will guided everything. The three worked simultaneously. When experts fought, they would often shout loudly what move they were using. In truth, that wasn't used to show off or frighten their opponents, but the result of this body, mouth, and will aspect. When they weren't united, it would reduce the power of the attack. In fact, if things went awry, the energy might simply explode in their bodies. There were plenty of cases of people crippling themselves due to the body, mouth, and will not working in unison. Shouting the move had a mental effect, and it allowed the essence, chi, and soul to flow through the requirements of the move naturally. This was one of the iron rules of the cultivation world that no one could change. Some moves had different proportions of energy. For example, Long Chen's Double Dragon Destruction, Starfall, and other magical arts usually had a proportion of 1:4:5. 10% physical energy, 40% spiritual yuan, and 50% spiritual strength. In addition, he had to summon Lei Long and Huolong's energy. Such a magical art required much more spiritual strength. Without spiritual strength, there was no way to keep the magical art stable. It would just explode in the body. People whose spiritual strength was lacking couldn't unleash such techniques. They were all normally close-range fighters, while those with powerful spiritual strength had no problem fighting at long range or short range. All attacks with a huge range, especially ones with shocking areas of destruction, required a massive amount of spiritual strength. That was why a genius's soul value was a very important decider of their talent. The Skywood Divine Palace's Jade Lake pageant required participants to be at the soul transformation realm and have a soul value of 10,000 points. That made countless geniuses cry in private. Even Empyreans wouldn't necessarily have such powerful spiritual strength, and if they didn't, then not even Empyreans would be allowed to attend the Jade Lake pageant. Seeing that Long Chen's soul value had reached 400,000 already gobsmacked countless people. On average, the people here had a soul value between 10,000 and 30,000. A very small portion might be able to reach 50,000. Those who could reach 100,000 were as rare as a phoenix feather or Qilin horn. They had the power to look down arrogantly on all the others. They had heard of people possessing a soul value in the hundreds of thousands, but they had never personally seen one. So all their hearts were pounding as they watched the red liquid slowly rise. Those people who had mocked Long Chen before were the most shocked ones. They felt a burning sensation on their faces. Worst of all, they had even been criticized by one of the disciples of the Skywood Divine Palace for being ignorant about the testing process, making them now look both stupid and laughable. As Long Chen's soul value continued to rise, their faces burned hotter and hotter. It was like each increase was a slap in the face. 500,000. 600,000. 700,000. As Long Chen's soul value continued to rise, everyone was deathly silent, staring at the tablet as well as that mysterious figure. Eventually, Long Chen's soul value reached 950,000. However, there it suddenly came to a stop, as if it couldn't progress any further. That made countless people sigh in disappointment. It had actually been a failure in the end, and it was just a little bit off. That was regretful. Ha ha ha. Didn't I say that he wouldn't be able to do it? Now, do you see it? Isn't he still a failure in the end? How could he compare to Dexian? He's a far cry from him. Does the light of a firefly dare to compare with the light of the full moon? The people who had mocked Long Chen immediately sighed with relief and began with their insults once again. It was like Long Chen's failure was the result that they wanted to see the most. Their wish was finally fulfilled. The disciple testing him couldn't help feeling that it was regretful that he was just a bit off. She encouraged him by saying, "Sometimes people's spiritual strength fluctuates when they're panicked or in a rush. You can try again after steadying your heart." "Thank you." Long Chen smiled. "There's no need to waste the time. We're not amateurs. We know the test requires unleashing all his spiritual strength. Doing so is exhausting, and to do it right after it will multiply the difficulty. There's no chance for him," laughed a disciple. "You!" The testing disciple glared at that person irritably. However, what he said was true. If one couldn't make it, then after tiring themselves out, it would be even more difficult to pass the second try. There was really no hope. However, for him to say such a thing before Long Chen had even tried again was irritating. "What do you understand? What if I actually manage to pass? Will you eat the stone tablet?" said Long Chen disdainfully. "Haha, if you succeed, we'll eat the entire stone tablet. But if you fail, you have to kneel and lick our shoes. Do you dare?" Over 10 people immediately raised a bet with Long Chen. "All right, then I'll bet with you." These were precisely the words that he had been waiting for. The red liquid that had been stagnating suddenly bloomed with light. Spiritual strength surged forward like a tsunami, and the red light soared. Boom! The red light reached the peak, and then the entire stone tablet exploded into fragments. It's off the charts.